what might be happening now, I'm really not sure. But I do recall that when that property was being looked at to be all retail primarily, that it was going to have considerable change in Route 45 and some changes in that, and how that was going to be mitigated. That was my understanding.
Okay. What I can do is I can reach out to Mr. Kirk Smith, who's a zoning officer with the village, and follow up on that and get back to you, Amy.
Yeah, I mean, we certainly don't want to have barriers for development, but some of those things that I think were put in place kind of go back to a conversation we had, or I brought up the last meeting about this, is that some of those things for good planning are worthwhile, so that you don't have long-term expense later that costs more to the community. And so things like good sidewalks, which Lake County calls bike paths, good infrastructure, good turn lanes, like you had mentioned about for busing, things that are thought through in a thoughtful way will ultimately serve the community well while still bringing in development. So I advocate for that. So a good marriage.
Very good, thank you. Is there any additional feedback from any of the other board members at this time?
So Abe, I couldn't really tell by the drawing if there's any way to hook up with the bike paths.
That was expressed at the original meeting, and desire to do that, and that feedback came from the Park District, and they did indicate that they would be doing that. They would be tying into adjacent pathways and creating a continuous path and loop. A connection would be accounted for.
So a walking path or bike path would be able to the people that live there would be able to access, get to Central at least.
Correct. That was discussed, that would be factored into the final development.
And I take it the bus paths, I swear I've been drinking, they can make those turns. That's been addressed?
It's not been addressed. The concern has been communicated, and they replied that would be considered and factored into the final design as well, to ensure that would be feasible, that turning radius would be factored.
Okay, and I just see one park on here on the southwest corner. Is that correct?
Correct. One park, as well as something for the senior citizen portion as well. Don't know if it was foosball or something like that. Yeah.
I think this is my last question. The retention ponds, feels like there's 3 or 4 retention ponds. Is there a path that goes around there?
Again, this is just a conceptual plan. Nothing further has been developed yet, but as it progresses, they have assured us that they'll be sharing those additional plans with us so that we may review and provide additional feedback if necessary. This is a very preliminary conceptual plan.
Okay, that's all the comments I have. Thank you.
Yeah, I have a question, and it's based on the conceptual plan. Is how finalized is it that it's going to be single-family homes and townhomes? And I mean, obviously, I would think that the retail might be changing as well. Just our retail footprint is in the process of being changed. So, I mean, is there a possibility this could look very, very different when it finally gets built?
It may evolve. Now, Bluestone, the developer, is working with Pulte to develop the area. They would begin with residential because that's the greatest demand. There is very little demand for the commercial real estate piece, but currently that is still part of the conceptual plan at this point.
Would it be possible or something where maybe as they're going through this, where it may be less single family and more multifamily or more senior housing too?
It's a possibility that may evolve. but initially the plans reflect what their studies kind of predicate that they need to do to be able to sell these properties.
Okay, anybody else have any more comments?
I have a question.
Mhm.
This property is currently designated as agricultural, and it was earmarked for commercial, light industrial, and it was earmarked in that way in order to reduce the tax burden on the taxing bodies in Grays Lake. I'm wondering what has changed in our circumstance that those taxing bodies have additional funds now they didn't have before. I'm just wondering what has changed that we can now have these properties, this property changed over to have homes on it when homes were thought to create a tax burden for the existing community. I'm just wondering, as we're talking about a concept, what has changed in the community's concept of trying to keep our costs low. So I guess what I'm asking for is I'm asking for some sort of a study to help us better understand what will the impact be of this new plan on all taxing bodies in Grays Lake.
Indeed, I can certainly forward that request on, Kathleen. I do know this isn't the first plan that they've tried to implement. I think they've tried previously, and those plans fizzled. Certainly, there will be impact fees from the individual units that are so exception of the senior citizen elements, and then the assessed value, the EAV of that would be a tax revenue stream for taxing districts. Versus now, I can certainly look it up. It's safe to assume it's very low EAV value in that footprint versus what it could be once developed. It would be much greater.
I'd like to see that in writing and what that would be for our existing homeowners and property taxpayers. I'd like to know not only from an initial impact fee, but what would it look like 5 years down the road? So we have a kind of a view. One of the things we've been known for in Grays Lake is not having a view.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent. Very good. Any additional feedback at this point?
As long as that was also mentioned by Kathleen, if it was being used for agricultural, now there's going to be homes on it. What does that mean for the space in terms, if it's on a floodplain at all, and water mitigation?
Mm-hmm.
Lake County has come up with a new plan because of the increase. And
yeah, certainly they would have to comply with all, I'm sorry, go ahead, Kathleen.
you know what, I'm not going to get into those details. I guess my questions are kind of, if I can get my questions answered, I'll be happy. I'm not going to get into the additional.
I don't want to go, I don't want to make it
I
too
don't need to go
complicated.
deep, but whenever we've just got a very basic question, I'm good. I'm good.
Okay. Very good. Anything else at this point?
I'm just aware in that area when we've had flooding, there's been flooding in that very area to our residents.
Yep.
So
in order for them to receive a permit as it relates to stormwater management, it's very stringent now than it used to be. And so they're going to actually have to not only address the current concern as well as the future concerns with retention areas. Very good. Is there anything else at this point related to that?
Okay.
Then,
thank you for everybody's input. That's very good. Let's see. Okay, now we're moving on to
COVID update.
COVID-19, yes.
COVID? Okay. So originally, when we were kind of plotting out these meetings, just knowing where we were at with our hybrid schedule, I guess I had anticipated, some sort of great extravaganza presentation. I don't have one, but I think the main thing we'd like to talk with the board about is the hybrid schedule, and I'll put that document up with the bell schedule up there again. But so we did have our next step task force, the last meeting on Monday, and Douglas and Aaron were there among a number of people that were in this room. Had a listening session with our staff on Tuesday and just have been gathering feedback and whatnot. I sent a video that is ready to go to the community pending this discussion. And I'm sorry, I meant to have that actually ready much earlier today. Video editing always takes longer than I think. So it is ready when you have a chance to look at it. But what I will do is just share my screen and I'll have that bell schedule up. I think that's it, is it not? Okay. So, sorry, I've got one little screen here and I'm trying to manipulate all my windows. So the hybrid model we're looking at, again, we would be looking at implementing that the week after the election. November 9th is a Monday, and according to our schedule, scroll up a little bit. So just going through the model, our Mondays are identical to what we're doing now in terms of remote, so it's all remote. Then the first opportunity for students to be in the buildings under this model would be Tuesday. That would be November 10th. So the idea, really quickly, I'll whip through the sort of the high points of this. Again, Mondays are all remote. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday is an A-B block schedule. So we would be looking at splitting our student body into two groups. Period 1 through 4 on Tuesdays. There would be a break, students leave, staff can also leave. As long as they are available for the live synchronous support starting at 11:42. And then at the end of the day, individual student meetings, office hours, like we have now. Wednesday, that same group of students would come back. They'd finish periods 5 through 8, and then the same schedule. Thursday, Friday, the groups flip, and it's basically the same except for on Friday afternoons. At the end of the day, instead of individual student meetings, it's staff meeting and planning time. So again, after we got through, we had our original hybrid plan, the third model. Took a good look at that after learning a lot from remote learning and kind of just gauging what our students need and what a better model would be now that we know more. This is what we're proposing. So I will leave it there, and just I think I'd like to answer any questions, or Tracy or anybody, if there's anything you'd like to highlight before we.
Can I highlight something that was not particularly clear with some people? So why those A and B, why A's in school, B is online viewing, correct?
Yes.
And vice versa.
Right.
So,
right. So students would be in the building 2 days a week only.
right. No, I understand that, but the people that aren't in the building
Right.
are doing virtual, and they're seeing there's a camera on them.
Yeah, the idea, and Tracy, correct me if I'm wrong, but every day, so that first period, Tuesday A, everybody is logging into Zoom, whether you're a fully remote student or a B student, if you're assigned to that class period, you're on Zoom for attendance purposes. And again, depending on the lesson, the students in Zoom might be invited to stay to participate in that lesson, or they might be told, you can, the learning materials which are provided via Schoology, you have time to work on that. Really just sort of depends on the lesson and the teacher and kind of where they are at in the flow of instruction, I guess. Did I get that right, Tracy?
Yeah.
Okay.
So while on that subject, I'm just trying to think of myself in that situation where I'm dealing with half of my students with masks on, ideally socially distanced in a classroom, all the while dealing with half of my students on Zoom. Cameras might be on, cameras might be off, but then kind of playing octopus and trying to deal with two different groups. So I guess my question is, why not just have, when group A is in class, have group B just be asynchronous for that day?
So I can answer that. It will be up to the teacher and what's appropriate for the lesson. So all kids will come in for attendance purposes. All remote students will Zoom into the class. Attendance will be taken for that period. And the teacher at that time will decide whether Zoom students should stay on and watch or whether they should go do their work. And the way the teacher might decide that is based on the nature of the lesson. If the teacher is going to be moving around a lot, we just don't have the technology in the room for the teacher to easily navigate, right? The kids on a screen and the kids in front of them. However, if the teacher is doing a demonstration, if the teacher is doing like slides or a lecture of some kind that they can just put up through Zoom, right? If the teacher is going to be like statically leading a conversation, the teacher may want the students in the room to watch and view and participate in that. Or if the nature of the lesson is such that it would not make sense for the Zoom students to just be sitting there on the screen, they may have prepared something different, so say a video or whatever other materials that teacher has prepared, and say, period 1 students, thanks for checking in this morning, good to see you. Today's lesson is posted in Schoology for you, and then I'd love to see you this afternoon during the period 1 sync support so that we can go through any kind of questions, reinforcements from what you guys worked on this morning. So we've built it so that the teacher can separate when they need to by carving out that sync time in the afternoon. Or if the lesson is appropriate and the teacher wants to Zoom those kids in, and technologically it makes sense, the kids can see what's going on, they can see this teacher standing in front of them, then that would be fine too. So teachers can do either way as it works for them.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, all students check in, whether in person or online, and then the teacher allows them to stay or leave.
Yep.
But the important part there is the attendance piece.
Right.
And I'm assuming we couldn't do like what we did in the spring, where asynchronous students just checked in via Google form by a certain time.
Yeah, we've decided with intention to move away from that because we're finding that kids more and more, as time is progressing here, kids aren't doing that. They're not checking in. I also think there's a nice moment just for teacher students to engage for a minute, for the teachers to see that their students are there, that they are present, that they are ready and there to learn and engage. And so we are moving away from the Google document for attendance purposes and instead moving back to the traditional keeping attendance in PowerSchool. And we're doing that with intention. Because like I said, more and more students just aren't bothering. Why? Because their teachers are marking attendance in PowerSchool anyway with a different code that we call CV, which basically just indicates the student was supposed to be here and they weren't. And so since that's happening anyway, fewer and fewer kids are starting to fill out the Google document for attendance. So last time we talked about this, for example, I think it was Mike over at Central said they sent out 400 emails that day saying, hey, you didn't check into the Google Doc. So we're just going to move back to a more traditional attendance model. We like engaging all of the students at the start of class. We think that's a nice thing. And then kids can stay on or proceed to their other learning as the teacher has designed for them.
And then last question real quick, directed to Mikkel about the listening session that you had with the teachers. I'd love to know just what feedback you received just at initial glance with the schedule and kind of the plan for Q2 and moving forward.
Yeah, I think, the question you're asking, Jay, is, teachers are wondering how this is going to work. So, there's just concerns about, I wouldn't say concerns, but just questions about the instructional model. We've got all these remote learning procedures in play and people are starting to, feel that, and now we're going to change it again. So I think it's natural that people are just wondering how it's going to affect them and affect their particular subject matter and their class and all that sort of thing. So again, that's why we've given ourselves some time before we would be implementing it, among other reasons. And for sure, people are, want to make sure we have the health protocols down, we have the cleaning things down, we have the PPE in place, all of that. And a number of staff members, we have a number of staff members who have been on campus or in the buildings from time to time. We have some that haven't. So I think it's harder for them sometimes to visualize, what we're talking about. We tried to show where the PPE is going to be and all that sort of thing. But, toward the end of this, part of our timeline is at the end of this month, I believe the last week in October. That's when all staff will be in the building, even though kids won't be, just to get people accustomed to their surroundings. And if there are any, places where there need to be additional PPE, they can go through that. They know kind of how they're going to move around the room, around the building. We'll have a chance to kind of shore some of those things up before students are in the building and it's live. So, I don't know, did I miss anything, guys?
No, I think that's a good summary.
I think we asked this during the sessions, but do we have any indicator of how many teachers are not going to feel comfortable coming into the school and how many substitutes or that we're going to have to be employing?
I will kick it over to Danielle. Would you like to field a little bit of that, please?
Sure. So great question, Douglas. So about Help Me Team, mid-September, we sent out a survey to staff. We had sent one out in June just to say, as we prepared for the fall, and then we pivoted to remote. So we decided to send another survey mid-September to do exactly that, Douglas, to take the temperature, no pun intended, of where people were and ask them to kind of check the box as it relates to medical concerns and wonders, as well as childcare concerns and wonders, right? Because we all know that those are the two big areas that would impede someone's ability or willingness to return. So great survey results, Mikkel. I think we were close to 300 respondents out of a staff of short of 400. So we had a really great response rate. 85 of those people indicated that they had concerns either medically or for childcare. 55 were childcare and the other were medical for either themselves or an immediate family member in their home. So since that data has come back, I've engaged in one-on-one phone calls, and I'm still doing that, one-on-one Zooms or one-on-one phone calls with every employee to be a really good listener and understand their situation and help them problem solve. I will say how just in awe I am of our staff. They want to be back with kids. They love their work. They can't wait to get back. Some of them have legit medical concerns that we need to talk more about and get some medical notes about, and that may impact their ability to be back. The numbers are doable, I'll say that. With all due respect, I haven't finished all of them, so I can't give kind of hard and fast for you right now. But from the medical domain, we feel like we will have enough support in our building to make that happen for staff. Childcare conversations are really happening as we speak. I, with intention, had medical conversations first because I knew the turnaround with doctor's notes, et cetera, would take some time. Our staff are great. As I said, they're working really hard and the ground's moving underneath them. So many of them are waiting desperately for their own child's plan. And some districts aren't as ahead of the game, as I'm proud to say we are, right? We have, with intention, gave staff a lot of time to wrap their brain around coming back, the plan, et cetera. Simultaneous to that, we are working with our daily subs. We have 64 subs that love District 127 and are with us prior to COVID. Many of them, as you can imagine, are retired teachers and henceforth in the high-risk category for returning to in-person. So we are engaging with them right now as to their willingness to return hybrid. So we know our numbers. So we know if we have enough bandwidth, if you will, to support our hybrid model. So far, so good. It's looking good. Subs are responding and saying, yes, I'll be there. So that's probably a little more than you needed and wanted, Douglas, but that's kind of where we are. So ongoing conversations. We do have about 85 staff that had signaled something is challenging.
And please, this is not to come out cold, but because there's a lot of people in this environment that are going crazy as parents and trying to do their jobs. Yeah. But if they do have childcare challenges, can they do their job?
In person, you're asking?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or
the
even
problem.
remotely. I mean, is it fair for them? Is it fair for the kids? For our students? And it's kind of rhetorical, I guess, but I guess that's a big question, isn't it? I mean, if they have to be with their kid for 4 hours a day, can they be teaching my kid at the high school?
If I could just quickly jump in and just ask a more pointed question on that same topic. I guess I would like to know what accommodations are we preparing for, and what options do y'all as a district have in place for those that might not be able to find childcare or might have a medical condition that, unfortunately doesn't allow them to come back in person? And to Douglas's point as well, I'm not trying to appear any kind of way here, but I just don't want anyone to feel like their options are return to work, risk your health, or lose your job or go on a leave of absence and not teach.
Yeah, so thanks, Jay. So, accommodation conversations for medical are very individualized, right? And I look at it from a kind of a least restrictive continuum. It's the special ed in me, right? Like the least restrictive option is to get you in front of kids, right? So what reasonable accommodations can we put in place to get you physically in front of kids, right? And so I talk a lot about kind of our tier one, what we're doing for everyone. We have a really person-centered hybrid plan. We're not expecting anyone to be in the buildings on Mondays. We're asking staff to be present in the buildings 4 hours, 4 days a week, right? So we feel really proud of that plan, that we're limiting exposure by having such a model. We're also taking eating out of the equation. By this plan, right, we're not looking at where do students eat, with the exception of a child with a medical plan that requires them to eat more often, et cetera. But we're taking those big areas of concern and worry out of the equation. So we're proud of that. Also with our tier one, we're committed to getting feedback from parents about which students will be in those classes and ensuring that our sections are conducive to maintaining our 6 feet in every single classroom. So we have done walks through every single classroom to ensure those desks are 6 feet apart, to ensure the teacher has space to be away from kids, to keep people as safe as possible. We have invested in plexiglass. So plexiglass is up kind of at the front of the classroom for all teachers. We have face shields available for all teachers. We have sanitizing buckets in the classroom for cleaning, for painter's tape to put on the floor to make visual reminders, for et cetera, et cetera. So tier one, right, what we do for everybody. And then the accommodations, Jay, are really individualized. Given your health worry, what else do you need? Do you need a separate space? Do you need your own classroom? Do you need to park in a different place? Do you need additional plexi? Do you need, right, what are those things, right? And we hang in a very collaborative back and forth conversation about that. Some of our staff have asked the question very pointedly, may I stay remote? And it's a decision we have to make once we know how big the exposure, right? How many staff are we talking? Are we talking 30? Are we talking 10? Right, so we're in that process right now, Jay, gathering that information. We would love to be a district that could be flexible and nimble enough to say, those of you with significant medical concerns, either for yourself or someone in your home, we will allow to remain remote while students are in. But we have to secure the back end of that, meaning what adults in that classroom with kids? Do we have the technology that's going to make that meaningful, right? Kind of these other questions that we have to ask ourselves before we can just say, yes, we're going to make that accommodation. So that's the medical piece. If the medical condition is such that even remote wouldn't work, they have opportunity for family medical leave, right? And then really with the medical leave, everyone would be able to access FML. So we wouldn't look at kind of an unpaid leave. That would be a non-issue. And then if we flip to childcare, remember we have that FFCRA, right? The two-pronged law that protects with illness. For myself or my immediate family member, I get 10 days paid at my daily rate to stay home and be well, or help my child or immediate family member be well. The second prong of that law is for childcare, right? And it was intended for 12 weeks of temporary support. I have desperately, as a parent, tried to secure childcare and I can't. My child's hybrid plan does not link up with mine. So the law protects families for 12 weeks. The kicker, though, is there's a cap on the daily rate of pay. So an employee can either earn 2/3 of their daily rate, but it may not exceed $200 a day. So that's in place for our staff with childcare. We have had very high level discussions about having childcare here in 127. The turnaround is we need more time, right? We're committed to that, but we just can't do it yet. Gina Schuyler's at the helm on that conversation, and so we are committed to marching toward that, but it's no promise we can make for November 9. Does that help, Jay?
Yeah, it helps paint the picture. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Danielle, do you ever see any scenario where the teacher's going to be at home and you have a class full of students? Or let me just stop there.
Yes, in full candor, if we granted remote telework, if you will, for our teachers during hybrid instruction, that would mean the teacher is at home and students are in the classroom. Guidance has allowed us to do so by having a staff member in the classroom, physically present with children, right, while the teacher is remote. So yes, if we allow that as a reasonable accommodation, the teacher will be at home and students will be physically in class, and the teacher will Zoom in and instruct while another adult is monitoring the classroom.
At this point, Danielle, there's not an excessive number of individuals that would meet such a situation.
No, we're talking less than 10.
Okay, that's very helpful.
But if we found ourselves in a situation where a teacher needed to quarantine, and then but we wanted instruction to continue, that we might have, another staff member or two that would remote in temporarily, assuming they're well, right? And they're just having to, quarantine, that there may be additional rooms that needs to happen in, should there be an exposure situation.
And if a teacher is unwilling to, or unable, to self-certify in the morning because they have a sniffle or a cough, they can't come to work until they get a doctor's note saying it's an allergy or it's a cold. So then we may have more staff at home. So the pile on is really the worry, and it's unpredictable, Douglas. It's unpredictable. If we're talking 10 people out for medical, and to Tracy's point, 3 are quarantined for 14 days, even with a negative COVID test, it doesn't matter. They're out for 14 days. And then people that can't come because they can't self-certify they're symptom-free. And then the normal absences of people that, are not here for a various reason. So the pile on is what makes me, I'm going to say, anxious. Yeah. And I don't have a magic number. None of us do, right? What is that tipping point for us of how much we can sustain?
Before we have to pull back to remote.
Remote, correct.
The other question that seems to be coming up is that if the teacher's out and the classroom might be out because, of tracing, I mean, we might end up in a situation where the teacher's out and everyone that was in his or her class that day, they're all out.
Yeah.
It's crazy making, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Hence the importance, Kathleen, of sticking really with that 6 feet, right? Because how we define close contact is within 6 feet for more than 15 minutes. And you're right, Kathleen, Lake County's going to lean in and ask for those seating arrangements and talk to that teacher and say, were you closer than 6 feet for more than 15 minutes with those students? And if they indeed, that room will close for 14 days.
That room will close, and we know adolescents, right? I mean, that's what we do. They're good luck on keeping them separated. I drove by a school the other day and I saw a group of kids in masks, not ours, and they were shoulder to shoulder. Okay, I see the concern, and we're going to get into a very unstable situation quickly, I imagine. There was an article I read. On NPR all day today about the number of school districts well, I don't want to get into that. We'll talk about this, but this is all based on the numbers and where we are at the time. And there's just a lot of variables involved in this actually happening, right? We're not going to say today that this is going to happen in November. I mean, the conditions that we're in are going to dictate whether this happens or not. The numbers and the cases and stuff. So there's a lot of variables. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm rambling.
No, not all. I mean, what we can tell you though, Kathleen, is who we have the most contact with, obviously, is our colleagues in the area. And for the most part, there are some schools that have been back in hybrid, in varying degrees of hybrid for the last couple of weeks. And again, I don't want to speak for every single school, every single situation, but for the most part, they've been doing pretty well. They've been doing pretty well with number of cases, and that you mentioned the moving of the room. Not very often as it seems. We're touching base with each other and just, hey, superintendent, you went back hybrid a couple weeks ago. How's that going? And we're all sharing information. So far, for the most part, so far so good. So
good. Okay, well that's very encouraging. Thank you. My other thought is that, and I'm sure you're all over this, is that the CDC came out today about the aerosols in the room and staying in buildings. Have you been thinking about that? I know that there was the latest update that I saw was on Monday, saying that the aerosols are in the room. They stay for long periods of time. And so that's a changing thing also. So I'm sure you're into it. My concern was about, circulating air around the building. Last time we talked in PQ, and I think since I spoke to you last, Mikkel, this may have changed, is that we talked about the filtering of the heating system, and that was not a thing. But you told me the other day when we touched base on this that there was an ability to put a filter on our systems. Where are we at on that? Has that changed?
Yeah, so Kathleen, we've taken a closer look at that. We've worked with our mechanical engineers to assess our systems, and we have maximized the maximum MERV rating for all of our units throughout. We have maximized the outside air intake to the maximum setting of 30%. And we're also occupying our systems on a continuous basis to ensure that we're regenerating as much fresh air throughout our facilities as possible. So that is something that we're closely monitoring and managing at this point.
When you say 30% changeover, is that in what period of time? An hour, 24-hour period? What does that mean?
So the 30% refers to the outside air damper, which is typically set anywhere between 10 and 20% as standard, the OA damper for an intake. The maximum setting is at 30% for our units, which is the maximum amount of air we can pull in from the outside. That can translate to overall volume changeover, and I can certainly forward you that information, the amount of volume turnover on an hourly basis. We can get you that as well.
I don't want to get technical. I'm honestly, I'm not an engineer. I don't know the information, but what I do know is turning it over is good. Turning it over quickly is really good. And I know that that's becoming more of an issue. So I guess that's something we would want to know about. I imagine you would want to know about that, right?
Absolutely. We've got excellent building automation systems that are monitored every day to make sure all of our systems are running. We want to make sure we get as much fresh air into our facilities as possible. And secondly, that we've got the most effective filtration systems, filters in place as possible, and that they're being routinely changed out.
So that filtering is a thing. We can filter them.
Correct. Every unit event, every air handling unit have filters that are changed quarterly, and they come at different ratings. And right now we're targeting the highest rating possible for all of our units. Certainly the latest mechanical project that we undertook allows us to go to a MERV 13 rating, which is one of the highest.
Okay, and do we see any benefit from changing those out more often? Will that be, if we did, instead of changing the filters out quarterly, if we change them out more often, is there a benefit to us in that with this virus?
Filters, the way they work, over time they become more restrictive and actually act to filter even more effectively. The reason they're changed out is that they, at a certain point, will burn out the motor, the fan that's running it. And so that's why we need to change it in a timely fashion. So,
okay, so it really isn't about the cleanliness then of the filter itself. It's, keeping the building clean. It's more about keeping the equipment running.
Correct. The filters are effective and last up to 3 months. There are times, though, that we need to go in there and replace them a bit more often, depending upon what's happening with the unit. So cleaning aside, we're talking about indoor air quality, and right now with our building automation systems, with our filter process, as well as through building automation, maximizing the outside air intake on all of our units, we're assured very healthy indoor air quality.
Okay, all right, thank you. And you have worked with, you've worked with all of our outside resources to get to that peak operation with the equipment, so I imagine. Okay, all right, well, thank you. So sorry for getting in the weeds, it's just my own.
Good questions, Kath. Thank you, great questions.
I think they're timely questions. It's come up a lot recently. It's been spinning around a bit. I mean, the WHO brought this up, this summer, and it's, and ventilation is a part of the multi-layering system of engineering controls for us to ensure that people are safe. So it's not just one thing, it's all the layers that help us minimize risk, right? So if we're doing distancing, if we're washing hands, if we're having good, better ventilation, all those things, disinfectants, those are all layered on top of each other to ensure better safety. So it's hitting all those marks. I guess I do have a question. If we have an area, I'm glad that we've got the MERV 13, if I heard that right, that's good. If there's an area that isn't well ventilated, would we need any portable air cleaners? I'm hearing maybe not, but if we did, that would be something to consider, I guess.
We ensure on a daily basis, Amy, that all of our mechanical systems exhaust fans are operational every day.
Okay.
If they are not, we get alerts, we get text messages, we get alarms, and those areas get addressed immediately.
Okay. Some of the things that I keep hearing from families is just ensuring that when people just on the onset are arriving to school safely, so that they are not sick when they arrive, that they are okay on the bus, because not everyone has a car. So just ensuring that those protocols are all going to be well laid out, well thought out, very clear in communications. Those are all things that I'm just ultimately going to hope to see. I know that I now see more information about the buses that's going to be down, in numbers, which is good. But just ensuring that adults and children are doing their part to ensure that everyone is well is going to be really important. Ultimately, my question goes to just the, why we are doing this, which to me comes down to education, right? We're talking about all these engineering things and all these pieces, but the driving piece is to ensure that children are receiving a good education. So I guess if anything, I would like to hear more about what was said at the task force meeting, and what the teachers are saying and what the parents have been saying about how this will improve the education of the children.
Yeah, there.
Go
Sorry,
ahead.
I don't know. Yeah, I was just going to say. I mean, there are lots of. That's a big question. I think the main for me, and somebody feel free to contradict me or whatever, but the main reason to go to a hybrid model, and we can quibble about contact with teachers and, is it more, is it less, is it better, is it, how is that hybrid, the remote and the in-person going to work? Not going to lie, it's going to be challenging. But I think what we are hearing more and more is, engagement and connection and, kids falling off the cliff, so to speak. Just not showing up anymore, not being part of school. And that's concerning, obviously. So none of this works. None of this works well, or as we would like it to. I think our standards for what happens in the classroom and instruction is really high. For our teachers, really high. So to have to fit into an educational model like this where there's so many constraints and everything is just upended, I think that's hard. That's hard for folks. Jay, I'm sure you feel the same way. But what I have seen, even so far on a limited basis, when they see kids in the room, I walk down to the woodworking shop all the time because it's just right around the corner from our office. There, and they're doing mobile makers, so they're on the computers, doing programming. What I've seen from the teachers, once they're in, they feel comfortable. They feel comfortable with how we've set it up, and kids are working and working with them. It's just kind of, these kids need to be in here. That's what they keep saying. So I think that's the main benefit. Lots of things that, we're going to make it work as well as we can. But I think that's the main thing. I don't know if anybody else wants to chime in.
Yeah.
So, go ahead, Tracy.
I was just going to echo that, that we are having kids increasingly, initially kids were checking in, they were engaging, attendance was good. And as we progress through this remote model, we're finding students academically struggling more and more, and to degrees that we haven't seen before in terms of numbers of students. So we're bringing more and more kids into the building, and in so doing, they're improving academically, but they're also, I think, feeling better. There's a social emotional component here to getting students in this building, and although it's not school as normal, to see their peers, to see their teachers, to be able to engage with a counselor and a social worker, and whatever adult they happen to, bond with. There's an important piece there. The wonder is, just the challenge that is having kids in front of you and having a whole bunch of other kids not, and how we maximize that, and what's going to be the impact instructionally on that. How do we perfectly balance those two things? I mean, we're asking teachers to, manage a Herculean task here, and so there's certainly huge benefits to getting kids in the building, massive, immeasurable benefit, but there's increased challenge in that as well. And we're hyper aware of that, which is why we try to create this schedule that builds flexibility in for teachers, to try to keep those things separate, but they can engage with both groups, either separately or at the same time.
I do have a question, or it's two questions. When teachers are coming back or staff are coming back, do you have a plan to have them walk through safety protocols within the school so they know how things are different for them?
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole reason we're bringing them back 2 weeks before kids, so they can walk their space, so they can see, okay, I'm off period 2. This many other teachers are off period 2. Am I comfortable being in the office period 2, or do I need to find another location? Where is that other location? So that is, yes, Amy, that's the whole purpose of them coming in weeks before kids, so they can walk their spaces. They can let us know if, you know what, I'd like another piece of plexiglass over here because I meet with students in this kind of corner of the room. Just those sorts of things. So that's the whole purpose in bringing them back, is to engage in those very conversations.
Right. These are things that we've found to be very helpful within my own workplace. So we had people certify off. They had to sign. They were actually not allowed to be around anyone. They had to do a walkthrough before they were even allowed to go into their own space. Mm-hmm. It was a to-do, but it had to be done. So then that goes to my next question, because it's kind of a stepping stone, like just coming into a space you haven't been to, and then working through in the pat phrase right now, new normal. So just ensuring that I don't want to idealize something, so that I have absolutely no doubt whatsoever, no doubt that the teachers want to be with the students. No doubt at all. I have truly no doubt about that. I want to ensure that they don't have, that they want to be back in a way of teaching, so that they are not, that's not detrimental to then how they're teaching and working and that kind of thing. So that's really the only thing I just want to keep on the radar. But I have truly no doubt whatsoever that they want to be working in whatever way they can with students. I truly believe that. So.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a question. You know, and Nicole had mentioned this on Monday, that, you know, it says 50%, but we're not assuming that 100% of the students are coming back. And I'm looking at this and I'm starting to think more, obviously I'm going to think more in like lab science and some of these classes where, you know, you're going to plan it to do, okay, the A group's going to do the lab on Tuesday and the B group's going to do the lab on Thursday, and it's going to be asynchronous. So if you're a remote kid, are you going to be in one of these A, B groups and just be remote, or are you going to be on a totally different circuit? Because I'm assuming there is going to be a 100% remote option.
Yes, there will. Yes, there will. Yeah, I think that's what we're working out now. Kind of how, well, I'm not going to speak to the lab portion of that. Tracy, maybe you've had more conversations about that. I think that's my guess is that's a big discussion in the science department, how that may or may not work. But I think that's going to be the challenge. If you're looking at the students who are in front of you, the students who will be here tomorrow, but are still remote, but they're not here yet, and the students who are totally remote, how do you manage all of that as a teacher? It's going to be challenging for sure. I think we don't want to set up a system where a teacher's got to do 3 lesson plans for, you know, the same class. That is simply not manageable. So as much as possible, you know, I think we want to see that whole class, whatever group they're in, kind of on that same track. Again, for the labs, for students that can't come in, I think there will be alternative activities, online labs, even though those aren't clearly not as good as the real thing. But I think that's our challenge, and that's what we're planning. We need to give teachers time to figure some of that out. And by the way, we should mention this. We're going to be implementing some of our remote planning days. As you recall, the state gave us 5 remote planning days that we can use at will. We've already used 2 of them at the beginning of the school year. November 2nd, that Monday, we're going to be using a remote planning day for our teachers. Just, you know, we'll provide PD, I believe. The 3rd is a holiday, is the election holiday. And then we're going to use another remote planning day once we've kind of been in this hybrid model for a little bit. Is that the week of Thanksgiving, Tracy, I want to say?
Yeah, the Tuesday.
Okay. So we're trying to build in time for teachers to have time to figure this out and work with whoever they need to work with to do that.
Yeah, it's going to be a little bit of trial and error for them too, I think, to figure out what works best for them and for kids. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, and I have a follow-up question. Is the plan to kind of keep the current class sections intact and the current schedule that the kids are in, the teachers and the kids are in right now intact? So if you have math first hour and second hour study hall, that sort of thing, that won't change, your teacher won't change as best as you can?
Correct, yeah, that won't change.
The only
no
thing
matter
that,
which plan you choose.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, the only thing that'll change, I mean, will definitely change is, students right now have lunch on their schedule, right? And so if it's a 6th period lunch, we're not actually serving lunch. So it's more of a study hall. That's going to change to study hall. And that's one of the, logistical challenges that we have to make sure we have what would ordinary, even with 50%, where do we put those students to make sure we have enough social distancing and it's only, 50 students or less. So anyway, that's kind of in the weeds kind of stuff that we're working on now.
I have a question. I'm very concerned about the impact that being at home has had and the isolation on kids for as long as it's been. I'm hearing from kids that have kind of retreating into themselves. There's got to be, I don't know if we need to hire additional social workers that kind of walk and talk and help kids through this. It's going to be hard for some kids to come actually physically into the school, even though they need to be here. And we need to have, and a lot of our kids don't think, they think there's a stigma with having, talking with a social worker. And if there's a way, even if we have to hire, Danielle, I hate to give you additional work to do, but even have to bring people in, additional folk in to help out while we go through this process with our kids. What I've been hearing, what I'm reading, I mean, I'm not the expert, but I think there's going to be a toll over what's, these kids have been through. And I think if we can have additional resources to help kids, maybe even nurses, to help kids, I think it would be important.
Yeah, I mean, there's a toll on all of us for sure. So yes, there's going to be a toll on kids. Absolutely. Well, it's, something we're going to, I think, have to look at and work with our student support teams as we move forward toward this to get a sense and gauge on what the needs are going to be. So that's part of their gig for sure.
Alrighty. And the other question I have, and it's not about this in particular, the hybrid model, is that I did get a sense of urgency when this came up that you guys were seeing things that were troubling you with the students. But now we've been through, half of this semester. I think it would be a really good time to think about what it is that you have seen and maybe have a board review of that when you're ready. What you saw happening with the kids so that we can be prepared for the additional resources that you might need to cope with learning loss, the attendance, and some of the other concerns that will surely come up when these kids come back. I think the board needs to be very aware of what you're seeing so that we can respond to you. I think that's fair.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Kathleen, and certainly the support of the board. And of course, whenever we feel like we are in need, we know that we can come to you and talk to you guys about that and ask for that. So we very much appreciate that. I can say that the predominant concern is, the same concern we always have, but it's magnified under these circumstances, right? We just want to make sure that kids socially emotionally are doing well, but that also there's more kids not doing as well academically as they normally might. They're not turning in work. And that's some of the biggest challenge is kids just simply not doing the things they're supposed to be doing. So they're not engaging academically in the work, even if they happen to be physically in the space. So those are some challenges. We hope that bringing students in and being able to, be face to face with their teacher and engage in that assistance can help us turn that around.
This is why I kind of wanted to pivot some of the conversation to the education. I mean, we're so involved, and rightfully so, about all of the safety, but really it drives down to what we're really trying to do, which is educate and help all these children. And your comment really resonates because, we hear parents saying, well, my kid isn't they're not themselves. They're not turning in their work. I think they're doing this, but really they're not. So even the challenge is not just the children, but even the parents trying to figure out how to connect back to a process they thought they knew. They're like, we're just going to get the SATs and the ACTs and go on the college track, and then this will be the next phase, and they're having to relearn how to get through this piece. So there's just a lot here. So there's just a lot. And there's just, you can hear it within the community in lots of different ways, and it's coming out in different ways. But I think it drills down to everyone really cares about their kids, and they care about what's happening. And so that's, yeah.
I hear you, Amy. I'm also thinking, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut anyone off.
No, you're fine.
I'm hearing that, some kids they're not turning in their work because they're feeling lethargic. They're feeling, I think it goes back to mental health. These kids were not raised. They're very, it's a very difficult situation for them, and they're not feeling it. And I think there may be low-level depression that I don't know. I'm not a psychiatrist. I don't know about this. I just want to make sure that we have the supports available to help lift kids up when we get any way we can.
So I wasn't going to share this really quick story, but because my son, he ran cross country. He also has, with Coach Centella's, he has Spanish. And during our one-on-one meeting, our teacher-parent conference today, he was saying how much he was connecting with my son, and how the lunch transition for the freshmen has just been really instrumental and very helpful to his mental health well-being. And I would never tell the administration, what to do, but maybe have a lunch maybe transition as part of, where kids can go and talk to people, or just, sometimes you just need someone to listen, right? So it was just a very positive thing by Coach Centella. So I know a lot of other teachers are doing the same thing. They're really worrying about the students' mental health and organization. So
Douglas, I will add though that the teachers themselves are going through a lot. So
I know.
We can provide additional support, maybe have additional bodies there.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Let's walk and talk. I have a friend who has started a walk and talk program, for kids that just need to go out, walk and talk to an adult that isn't their parent.
Right.
And so that's all I'm going to say about it. Like you said, Douglas, we're not the experts on this, but I will say this, Abe, I think we've talked about this a little bit, that there was additional funding through the CARES Act that came through for through the Lake County board. And what I did hear recently, and I'm just going to throw it out there because it relates to us, is that I don't know if they used as part of their assessment of who gets money or not the evidence-based formula. Because if they were handing out funds to school districts based on who comes first, I think somebody should put a note into the Lake County Health Department to say that maybe that we should also take into consideration the evidence-based formula, because some school districts, we're obviously not dealing with this, the same amount of money. There isn't the equity there. And so they may want to be very nicely wanting to be equitable and hand this money out, but they're handing it out in a situation where school districts like ours are not starting from the same spot as other districts. So, I mean, I can either send that question into them, or maybe you can work with a group of, you know, you can send something in or think about that, because I do think it should be based on need first. But I know I'm getting away from the topic altogether, and I don't mean to do that, but I think there's additional funds out there that we can access, but I think we need to claim it, and claim it because of our situation. That's
Good, all good discussion. So does anybody else have any, does the administration have any more points to make about COVID-19?
Well, just the timeline of this, and I don't know if I mentioned this today or not, so I might be repeating myself, sorry. My intent was, you know, pending this discussion, was to send out, it's a video that basically walks through much of this, even goes into, you know, air handlers and filters and things like that, but to send out to the community as information, in addition to a document, because there's so much, there is so much. Tracy's got a really great document that lays out lots and lots of details, so we'd send the video, we'd send that document. We also have another document that I think Jess was working on with different types of masks, because not all masks are created equal and some will not be allowed, so just as reference there. And possibly most importantly, a survey for parents. We'd like them to fill that out and commit actually to remote, or now you have some details, are you going to send your students hybrid, and are you going to be using the bus? So we need to start planning and actually literally going through classroom by classroom, period by period. How many students are going to be in there? Is there not enough capacity in this room? Oh, but there might be some capacity in that room. We can flip-flop just to make sure it's going to work, and putting together bus routes. So my intent was tomorrow morning, get it out there.
And that will be in the documents, at least will be in, I'm Jay right now, in Spanish as well.
Yeah, I have directions in there on how to how those documents can be translated. So yes, there's links to translation.
And I think there's going to be a lot of questions, so maybe I don't even, if there's a way to set up some Q&A sessions before all this goes down. I don't know.
Yeah, we're working on the how to get feedback, and feedback to us and back to parents for sure. There'll be a lot of questions.
Yeah.
So does this point have to be reapproved by the board?
It doesn't. Well, the board approved the plan in July, and actually, according to our lawyers, you didn't need to do that, but I appreciate that you did. Basically, the plan, the way it's worded legally, is the plan is as implemented by the superintendent. So there is not a need for the board to approve a specific plan. I can pull up the actual language, but our lawyers say no, we do not. You always can, but there's no need.
Well, I was just going to quickly add, I think what will help me just better understand this plan is to know some of the logistics. And I know we're not supposed to be getting into the weeds, but I think this particular situation is a little bit different, you know, when it comes to students in hallways and how we're actually separating classrooms, and just as for social distancing sake, just for me and for sake of ease, that would help me kind of have a better picture of what's going on. Yeah,
I mean, as far as, again, getting into specific situations, but like the hallway bits and things like that, I mean, there's still some things, we still have a month to figure some things out. You know, if we didn't think we could pull it off, we wouldn't be proposing the plan. But what I would suggest, Jay, I did send, you know, right before this meeting started, kind of a video that I'll be laying out to the community. Take a look at that. Take a look at the document. You'll get all the same stuff, you know, that our parents get as well. So hopefully that'll answer some questions. I'm sure there will be others.
And Jay, I can just speak a little bit to some of that. So we have literally walked every single space in the building and measured it, assessed furniture, you know, given the furniture, given the space. We've moved things out of classrooms in order to make sufficient space so that we are certain that we're adhering to the required spacing, at least 6 feet between students. Again, putting plexi in each room and all of the safety things in each room. We're meeting with each of the specific departments that's already started around what does band look like? What does choir look like? What does PE look like? What does science look like? So all of those conversations are already happening or have already happened. And we have kind of spelled those out in this document that we'll be sharing. Bathrooms, you know, we're limiting no more than 3 students in the bathroom at a time. We're going to have hall monitors helping to deal with that. We've lengthened passing periods to allow students to walk at a reasonable pace, at a reasonable distance, and they're not using lockers. So they'll be carrying their stuff as they move around the hallways. And obviously there'll be less than 50% of the students in the building at any given time, so there'll be much less congestion. So we have, Jay, to your point, been really diligent about going room by room by room and making sure that we can stick to all of the things that we need to stick to, the spacing, all of those things.
Yeah, and the condensed plan is only 18 pages now, by the way.
Yes.
Yeah, and there are things that we're coming across every day, like, oh, geez, you know, we got to think about that. And again, things that we can figure out, and we will figure out. We've got time to do it. But I think what we'll send out tomorrow will give a start for sure.
One thing that I would like to see for transparency's sake for the community is that we have on our dashboard, on our website, the information that you did share, but keep it up to date on cases, staff, and students. Doesn't it?
Cases within the buildings.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sure. I was thinking like the county-wide health metrics, which is important.
Well, that stuff should be linked. Yeah. It should be really easily accessible, and then that way people aren't. The key reason is then they are not sharing misinformation. Then they have clear information of how to make, then they're receiving the information that's being used at this school. There's so much misinformation.
There is that, for sure.
Amy, if I could add that we make sure that we're telling our families that, you know, even though we have this plan in place, we're gung-ho, that under certain circumstances, we may pull this back. People need to be very, very aware that we're not living in an island. We're not on our own little bubble over here. If things change, then this may not happen on that date, right? And so I think I'm sure, Nicole, that you've made that very clear.
I hit it pretty hard, yeah.
Okay, that's good. I'm looking forward to hearing how you did that, because I think that's part of the clarity, right, Amy, is that they know that everyone's doing their best, but under these circumstances, we're not in control of this. You know, we're not God. We don't have all knowledge.
It's a layered message. Things can be open because things are this. Things might dial back because of this.
Right. Okay.
It's a layered message.
Okay, I'm done.
No, it's okay. It's all good.
Okay.
So are we done with COVID-19?
I am.
I wish.
I am definitely done with COVID.
Okay. Well, I mean, for this conversation. So moving on to new business.
Douglas, I'm sorry if I could say one thing. I've talked to each of the board members over the last load of months. I know people have different levels of concern. If you have concerns still, please give me a call or talk to Nicole directly. No board members should be sitting with questions over the weekend and being worried. That is, you know, you're going to have more questions. That's normal. And I will listen, and Nicole will listen, and we'll all come together. But all concerns need to be put on the table. That's what's important. That's what's great about our board. Okay.
Honestly, I would be shocked if you didn't have more questions. So seriously, feel free to please contact me or whoever, like anytime.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yes.
Okay, great. So new business, recommendations for the 2021-2022 student fees. Abe?
Thank you, Douglas. If we're done with COVID, let's go to 2021 then, right now. So within the packet, you will find a recommendation to not increase student fees for next year, with the exception of the heartstrap monitor, which is now $20 from $16. So this is a simple pass-through fee from the supplier. There's no markup on behalf of the district. And so for this year, just FYI, a number of fees are not being collected because they're not applicable, such as the gym uniforms, locks, heartstrap monitors, as well as parking. It's worth mentioning we are working with those families experiencing difficulty meeting payments. We are able to offer various payment plans to meet their budget needs, as well as other options. Not directly related, but worth mentioning. For the community, we continue to offer meals from our North Campus. We've been averaging 140 meals per week. It's very successful, and that's been active on an ongoing basis. As it relates to our recommendation to not increase fees for next year for student fees, with the exception of the heartstrap monitors, are there any questions related to this? Because my next topic's my most favorite.
Yep. The recommendation to intent 2020 levy.
Excellent. If I may share my screen. Do that. Don't look at my desktop, please. It's busy. And where's my present button? Very good. Is everyone able to see my screen? Yes, thank you. All right. So the revenue from this levy is necessary in order to support our balanced budget, which was approved at our September Board of Education meeting. In implementing our budget, we meet our district goal number 4, to maintain fiscal responsibility for the school district and to meet our contractual obligations. This is the timeline for the adoption of our levy. So tonight we are reviewing this very same timeline, as well as recommendations related to the tentative levy. At our board meeting coming up, we hope to adopt a resolution of the intent to levy taxes and establish a hearing date and location for the adoption. On the 30th, we will publish the hearing and truth and taxation notice, which can't be any less than 7 or any more than 14 days prior to the hearing. On the 5th, at that next F&F committee meeting, we'll review the proposed levy, the intent to levy, as well as the notice. And then on the 12th, we'll hold the levy and then present the adoption of the levy to the Board of Education as well, because we want to get that into the Lake County Clerk's office by the 13th. So truth and taxation, it's whenever you levy more than 5%. We haven't, but we still comply with truth and taxation as it relates to the notice that's published in the paper, as well as the public hearings. We still have them, even though we're not levying more than 5%, we haven't. We still comply with the truth and taxation requirements within this district. So PTEL, just to remind the Board of Education, we do not levy a tax rate, we levy a dollar amount. The dollar amount we request is limited by what we received last year plus the Consumer Price Index. It's also referred to as the Cost of Living Index. We're able to capture the tax rate also on any new construction within the district, as this growth can often be accompanied by students, which would increase our expenses for the district. Here's a 10-year history of CPI. The 5-year as well as the 10-year average has been 1.8%. The 2019 CPI was 2.3%, which will be used in this year's levy. As a reminder, we use CPI to allow us to increase our tax levy as well as the extension, which is an indicator of the cost of purchases of goods and services. 2/3 of our budget is salary and benefits. I don't feel CPI is the best index to use. It is the PTEL law that we comply with. One of the things I want to advocate for going forward is perhaps using an ECI indicator, the employment cost of index, as the majority of our budget is salary and benefits. Moving on to this year. 2020 CPI is not looking good. There was actually a moment after March that it was negative, and there was some thought as to what a negative CPI would do to a tax levy. Since then, there's been an uptick. It's picked up. And if we were to extend the August end CPI, the year-over-year increase would be 1.1%, meaning the levy that we would be presenting next year would be an increase of 1.1%. Certainly a concern is a fall flu season that could increase the COVID cases and then again push us back down, which would mean a very little to no increase in our revenue next year. And so it's important for us to capture our full revenue amount as reflected within our budget with this tax levy. This is an illustration to demonstrate how a tax levy and the resulting extension is independent of EAV or tax rate. We essentially get CPI, which is constant year over year. It's been 1.8%, 2.3% for this year. If you look back at the 2008 Great Recession, housing prices fell, tax rates went up, folks were paying the same amount as they did the year before, plus the CPI increase. And so that's the relationship. Essentially, that's the end product. As EAV goes up, the tax rate goes down and vice versa. Let's look at EAV within our taxing district. From 2008, the EAV continued to go down all the way through 2014. And it wasn't until 2014 where it started picking up again and we started coming out of the negative trend. And for 2020, the estimate EAV is $1.111 billion. Again, that's the equalized assessed value. If you wanted to buy all the property within our taxing district, it would be 3 times that. If you had $3.33 billion, that is the assessed value of our district, which takes us back to the same value back in 2011, not quite where we were prior to the 2008 Great Recession. And so that's the overall trend. We're still positive for this year at 2.56% in EAV. One other thing I wanted to point out, it's 85% residential. There is a commercial component at 12.3%, and the EAV also has an industrial component of 2.19%. And the railroads that everyone loves also contribute at 0.15% of the EAV breakdown. They also contribute in property taxes. Here you'll notice the trend in EAV over time on a per pupil basis. The EAV was declining, and since then it's been increasing, directly correlated to tax rates. As EAV has increased, the tax rate has decreased. If one were to only look at tax rates, you would assume taxes are going down. But as I've indicated, it's independent of either. The way a levy works is we levy a dollar amount based upon the prior year plus the CPI increase. And so if we looked at dollars and the amount of property taxes collected on a per student basis, the average in Lake County is $18,180. We're at $17,617, or about $560 less per student below the average. Informing everyone as it relates to our percent adequacy, we're 73.6% adequately funded at Tier 2, Tier 1 being the bottom, which is at 67%. We're 6% above the last tier as it relates to the evidence-based funding adequacy rating. And by the way, it's worth noting, we are academically much higher performing than District 120 and 117 that are actually funded at a much higher percentage than we are. And so the state did hold harmless revenue from Tier 4 districts, and so over time, new revenue would be directed to Tier 1 and Tier 2 districts such as us. Over the past 6 years, it's worth noting that we have doubled our state revenues, lessening our burden on local sources. And so this is the last year of the 2002 bonds to be levied. Mikkel indicated earlier, you've been seeing this graph and being told that the end is near with DSEP. Well, this is the very last year for levying an incredible amount in debt services. It will drop off here by $7.6 million next year. This correlates to approximately $583 per household for a $250,000 home. In perpetuity, that would be the savings over time. The property tax relief grant in 2021, we will again abate this spring another $1.33 million to our taxpayers, which will save approximately $102 for a $250,000 home. The 3-year total is $5.5 million in property tax abatement that this Board of Education has executed, which has saved approximately $428 total for the 3 years for a $250,000 home. So again, just to remind the Board of Education, we do not levy a tax rate, we levy a dollar amount. The amount we request is limited to what we received last year plus CPI, also referred to as the cost of living index is what we're requesting. As far as the increase, the estimated capped extension is $40,560,039, and the levy we're recommending is $40,807,000, which is at 3%. It's a much tighter levy compared to last year, which was 3.93%. And the reason we do this is that the amount of new construction indicated is a pure estimate. We don't know exactly what that amount is. We want to make sure that we capture any and all new construction to make sure that that fair share of taxes is contributed to by the new construction. And this is the formal tentative certificate of tax levy summarizing the information I've already reviewed. You can see the dollar amounts on a by fund basis with the certificate. So with that, are there any questions as it relates to this tentative tax levy?
Hey, Abe, can you go back 2 slides?
Yeah.
The total levy is 47, almost 48 million. And then the next slide.
So this includes debt services.
Debt services, got it. Okay. That's why it didn't match with.
Yeah, and then the next slide is a bit confusing because IMRF, what gets sent to CDOL, is not capped, but it is included in the total levy.
Okay.
This does not include debt services because that does not get levied.
Yep, I forgot about that. I'm sorry.
Absolutely. Any additional questions?
Okay. Thank you, Abe.
Thank you.
Very, very thorough. Okay. Getting into the home stretch here. IGA with Lake County for CARES funds.
Indeed. And Kathleen, you referred to this earlier today. So the U.S. Treasury released new guidelines with specific information regarding schools, and the Lake County Board has increased their allocations. Grays Lake, District 127, we will now receive a new maximum allocation of $155,160. And this was determined on a per pupil basis on enrollment. I wish it was based upon evidence-based funding because there's certainly districts that don't need it that are at 200+% adequacy, but it was determined on a per student basis. We did see an increase of, again, $66,000. And in order to receive these funds, we need to execute this IGA with Lake County, and that's why it is on the agenda for review. Are there any questions related to this IGA?
No, I'm glad we're on it. Going forward, if the federal government does release any additional funds, Abe, I think we really do need to think about our status as a Tier 2 school, and I think we need to press our case moving forward. I don't think the board the Lake County Board. I think their intentions were wonderful, wanting to treat everyone equally, but as you know, this is not equal, and it's not being distributed equally as far as, well, you know, I'm not going to lecture you on this, but anyway, but I do think that we can, if this happens again, and I forget, that we need to be thinking about. I think we need to be thinking about this. So that's what I think.
Agreed. Thank you for your input on that. Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you, Kathy. Okay. Do we need to have need to go on a closed session? I don't think so, do we?
We may just momentarily to provide
Okay.
an update on negotiations.
Oh, right. That's right. I'm sorry. Yep.
Oh, do you need a second? Second.
I guess we need a second. Yeah. I'm sorry. All in favor, say aye. I don't know.
Aye.
Aye, aye. Okay. So,
Aye.
all right. Aye, aye. So we're going to let people in and we'll finish this up.
Yep.
Okay. As people are joining, are there any other topics for future committee or board meetings? Am I mute?
Nope.
Anybody else? Okay.
I don't know if it's here I don't know where it belongs, but so I'll just throw it out here.
Sure.
It's something brought up way in the very beginning of COVID when we thought we might be coming back in March, right? And talking about busing. I know. Parking lot. And this is a central question because there's enough parking over at North, but whether or not we need to look at parking alternatives and need an intergovernmental agreement or a discussion again with Gray's Lake about street parking, or if that's already been done, I'm just not aware of it. It's just another thing to add to the pile of everything. But as things maybe open up again, and if there's a lot of people coming, this might be kicked down even further. I just don't want it to fall off. Because
No, very good. I love it, Amy. Yeah.
I think it may come up.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't need to be addressed next meeting. I just want to mention it.
And I actually have something on top of that. And I brought this up years ago and I was told to be quiet. But any other additional space that we can get near the school and the reasons why we're restricted from buying, let's say, a house that comes up to sale adjacent to the property, and why we can't pursue that. So I'd like to, and again, not for the next meeting, but I'd like to for everybody to hear the reasons why that's not, we can't do that, or we can, or whatever.
Yeah.
Thank you. These are conversations we've actually had just recently at AC, but we can certainly discuss this in the future as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Pretty sure Mike Przybylski has his parking garage plan like ready to go. So that's, you know.
I'm not talking about a parking garage, but yeah.
You know.
Amy, Douglas wants one, 2 stories. I know all about it. Yeah.
I just want to buy some houses and put up, 50 parking spaces,
Anyway, just whatever. I'm just anticipating. It's just that anticipating piece, right? And the logistics. And as we've been doing all the logistics, then more logistics come. And there's a breaking point, and that one's tricky. It already is tricky. It's already a problem, but it could become. So now you've got 50-50 maybe, but anyway.
Right.
And I guess, is there another question? Well, I'll ask it later. Never mind. I'm done.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Anybody else that had any board meetings or committee? Okay. So I think we can adjourn. So want to get a 5-minute break, or you want to plow into it? Whatever your call, Amy.
I just need I need 2 minutes.
Same
I'll be
here.
right back. Everyone need 5 minutes? A 5-minute break? 5-minute break. Now I'll wait for Jay and Aaron at least to come back. All right. All right, here we go. I see administration. Is Jay back?
Not on camera yet. Oh, there he is.
Sorry.
Okay. No, that's okay. Is Aaron back? Oh, wait.
Yeah, I'm back, Amy. I am having really bad internet troubles today, so I'm popping in and out.
I definitely understand that. Sometimes I just take my screen off of video.
Experiencing it too, Amy, just in case during my section I go in and out. I apologize in advance.
It's fine. I use Teams a lot. Oh, is that just, oh, man.
Wait, what? Is it good or bad? I can't tell. No. Okay. Not so good.
You know, it has some benefits. It has some really good chat features. Like I work with a lot of different teams on Teams.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just chatting with people all day long, and I'm zooming off different places, and then I'm linking files and stuff, and that's all really good.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can just be in an area and then suddenly have a conversation like this. But it really sucks a lot of energy and time. Like it really, I don't know. I have to turn off a lot of other programs I'm running if I'm going into a video call. And I don't, yeah.
Yeah.
But it has some really nice features where if you're working on things together as a group, it has some really nice features. So, you know, once an organization makes a determination of whatever platform they're using, you just roll with it. So I've used everything from, you name it, back to the fax machine. eFax. Did you ever use eFax? I was an eFax user.
No.
Yeah. Where you would fax something, it would end up in your email.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And then I had a number. I had a number, and people could fax me on it anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
The number was out of New Jersey, but it would land here. So someone would fax me, but it would land here as a fax. It was crazy, or as an email if I was traveling.
I bet it was pretty cutting edge at the time.
It was very cutting edge. So this was 20 years ago.
I was about to say, isn't that just a scan?
I know. You would think, yeah. This is before a little scan, but man, that thing worked. That was great. If you were cranking a lot of things. So I used that thing for probably 6 or 7 years. So, all right. So I got Aaron, I got Jay. Is Kathleen back?
She just gave the thumbs up.
Okay, she's back. Okay. I can't see everybody, so.
Yeah, I'm scrolling kind of through the windows, but yeah, I saw it.
I'm trying to, but. Okay. All right, so you see it. Okay, that's fine. All right, so I think we can start. Okay, so got the PQ meeting starting, convening at 8:24 p.m. Let's see, we've got the Pledge of Allegiance. Let's see. Okay, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Fabulous. Okay, so open it up for public participation.
Doesn't look like there's anyone.
Okay. 8:25, we will close public participation. All right, so then we've got reviewing the meeting minutes from September 3rd, 2020. I didn't see anything objectionable. I should say they look good.
It looks good.
Aaron? Aaron, I usually look for your thumbs up.
Look fine by me.
Okay, I gotta change my screen somehow. Okay, all right. All right, so now we're on to continuing business. COVID update. Do we have any other questions regarding COVID update other than what we just heard in FNF?
I have nothing new to add other than what we just talked about.
Okay.
Same.
I'm good.
Okay. I think the only other question that I had was about the survey itself to parents. It was, I think, just a pulse. And originally, I think that it was going to be really close in terms of how many people were coming into the buildings. So I listened to the meeting last night for D46. I watched that, and it looks like more families had chosen to go remote. So I was curious what the numbers here.
Yeah, so when we did our original survey kind of in July, and again with no details whatsoever, right. That number was about 15% said that they thought that their student would stay remote or go remote. This past survey from last week or whenever it was, I think we had I got to check again, we're probably close to 70% participation from our families, and it is 25% who said, again, absent any details, that they think their student would stay remote. So tomorrow when we send this other survey with more details, it'll be interesting to see, but that it was an increase. So a couple of ways to interpret that, but I guess the way I like to interpret it, remote learning is going better than some thought. So that's how I like to interpret that.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll get some more information tomorrow.
Okay. All right. Now on to SRO information. We received a document about that. I'm going to open that. And I know it's kind of hard to read, so we're going to see if I can get this to cooperate. To see that. Well, I'll try and do it that way, at least for now. Okay, so this was something that we brought back to the committee with some more documentation, and for us to discuss as a committee, something that Jay had brought up and we've brought up. Jay, I don't know if you had any further questions about this. I do have a couple things that have stood out to me, but Jay, if you wanted to go first, or if you had any questions, or if anybody else wanted to make a comment.
Yeah, sure, I can quickly go ahead. I had a question about the evaluation tool, and the question just being if we could, is it possible for us to see that, kind of what goes into that? I know on page, if I'm right, 12 or 13, one of the two, it mentions some of the guidelines for the evaluation, but not the actual tool itself. It's a little further on the bottom. I'm looking at it on my screen right now.
Okay. Oh, here, this one. Evaluation, the liaison program, okay, program will be evaluated once a year unless situations arise. The guidelines will be used. Student body acceptance, is this what you mean?
Yeah.
Okay. School staff and administration opinions of effectiveness, officers report on recommendations, police department judgment of effectiveness, community acceptance, statistical analysis as appropriate.
Yeah, and I mentioned this just because, you know, I discussed last time, it would be really helpful and insightful to kind of get information from students and staff. Just trying to get like a climate survey really around this topic, and it seems like that's kind of part of the evaluation. So I guess I'm curious if that already exists. I know obviously that's incredibly different with COVID and whatnot. So I guess it kind of changes the conversation, but just to kind of know what goes into that, what sort of questions are being asked, if they are.
We'll find some info on that for you, for sure. I don't, off the top of my head, I'm not sure, but we can find out.
Yeah, I know Mike and Meg are involved in
Right.
in the end of the year evaluation, but I haven't seen the actual tool.
Okay.
Okay.
Jay, I kind of honed in on the same area, and coming up a little bit later as part of the MOU, I don't have it's very hard for me to navigate all of these screens, but right now, so I don't have the information I had typed up before. I don't have a new method for all of this yet.
I have you in front of me, so I can kind of.
Yeah, it's a bit much. But okay, but in there was a parent teacher, and I was looking at parent evaluation as part of the MOU. And I wanted to know if that ever happened, what happened there, and if the students were part of. There was a term for it, that the police officer would work with parents and students to evaluate the officer's performance. So it's in there somewhere. I can send it over probably early next week would be the earliest I could get to it if you need to figure out exactly where that language is, but it's somewhere in that MOU. I'm sorry for not having it, but I can't navigate this right now.
Yeah, we can certainly find this information. I guess if I could ask a question, what is there something in particular we're looking for, or my understanding is we want to talk about SROs. I don't know why or what purpose. We can have the conversation regardless. It doesn't matter. I'm just curious if there's something in particular we're looking for, we're trying to find.
Acceptance. I think what I'm looking at, once Jay brought this up, I really want to know how comfortable our students feel with the SROs that we work with, and if they're engaging in the process. There was a part of the document, the MRO, that said we're doing this so that children will have respect for police officers, and it seemed to me, and so that the police officer would help with antisocial behavior and building respect for police officers. And I'm thinking there's just, and this was written back in, I think it was 2006 or 2007. And so there was aspects of the language that I think needed to be refreshed. It was still looking at the DARE program. And there was, so I just thought that needed a refresh, and then look at it from the perspective of, we were also looking at one point at having, so we want to know, what is our student involvement? How do they feel about the officers? And is the purpose of this program solely to build respect so that children will be respectful, or is it to create the conditions where they can have a relationship and that can be built over time? I think the language is important around this. And again, I don't have my notes, so I'm feeling a little bit, so those are the kinds of things I'm thinking about. And so that it's really, it's not, you respect police officers, but they're in the school, and we want our kids to feel comfortable with them, and we want to make sure that they have a say at some point, and the parents do too. I'm speaking for myself, in the quality of the police officers that we are bringing in.
Yeah. So
Sorry.
my comments that from what I had seen, and Kathleen just hit it right away, was the DARE program jumped out at me right away, because the Grays Lake Police Department no longer participates in the DARE program. They stepped away from that several years ago. The language in this is outdated and doesn't include I mean, I looked through the document. I thought I found restorative justice once, and it wasn't really in the context that we're currently using within schools. So I think that it's fair to go back to something like this and still understand what the context is and the intent is within what's being done in the schools, but make sure that the contracts we have, the policies we have are up to date with practice, and ensure that the practice is what you want it to be.
Well, Amy, what I'm thinking is that the policies are refreshing, but the practices isn't. You know, this is what we're looking at here is the practice. And what's bothering me a little bit is that the things that we've been talking about, restorative justice, has been a big thing for us. We haven't heard about it much lately, but okay, there's been a lot going on. But it doesn't seem to have filtered down here. And I think that was what was jarring about it for me. So, and I also think, you know, the way our young people are working with police officers these days, I mean, we've got to take that into consideration. So this is going to be the kind of relationship building that we want to have, and not demanding of our students. I guess I kept picking up language that it was, you know, this is how you're going to behave, but this is a school environment, so we build relationship. So so there was some stuff there that was jarring for me. So yeah, I agree, I guess.
And I believe Jay had mentioned that in the very beginning of this conversations, and Jay, I don't want to put words in your mouth, so please correct me if I have this misstated, or my mind is, if I don't have this correct. But part of, to Mikkel's question, was to see where the layers are with this, where someone's being asked to come in as an SRO, where some of the pieces are already being applied by someone else already employed by the school. And just understanding that a little bit more. So I think Tracy had touched on this a little bit during our last discussion, but my understanding was that was part of the discussion. I could be wrong.
Yeah, it's just been a while since it was brought up the first time, and you know, I think we're happy to bring forward whatever information or what have you. Just want to make sure we're answering the right question, I guess. So I guess what I'm hearing is, okay, concern about the policy and the documentation, and yeah, definitely some dated language there. More importantly is, how do we actually use our SROs, right? Yeah, no, we're not doing DARE. So I think it would be maybe helpful to have somebody come in and talk about, you know, how does it actually work on the ground with kids? What is actually going on? And we were going to have the principals here tonight, but they have other things going on, parent-teacher conferences and things like that.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect, I think there's just, I don't think that we can approach this being, there's just a lot going on, and when we're all really exhausted, it layers on. So, you know, this is just like the first glance, I think, that we've had with all the, not the first glance, but I think this is the first we've got all the pieces now, kind of some of it for us to look at. So this wasn't like we're looking at this and making a vision or of any kind. It's to start the conversation.
Yeah, we just want to make sure we're giving you guys what you need. That's fine. So I'm hearing the evaluation piece, some details on that to start. Okay.
And then if I can also add, I mean, I was at the EdRed meeting yesterday, and they have a working group, and one of the areas that they're working in right now is with language around SROs, and I'd be really interested to see, they worked on it last year, and I think they're going to work on it again this year, and I'd be interested to find out, you know, what it is that they're working at on, and what approach they're taking. So we may end up maybe even freshening our policies around this too. So I don't know who all from the administration was there yesterday. Mikkel, I believe you were there. Abe was there. Tracy, you heard that. Did you hear that as well?
Yeah.
So, and they also are looking for board members or, members of the administration to join that committee. So maybe that's something the board can think about, but it is during the day, and that's really kind of the icky part of it. So I think there's a lot of work that's going to be happening around this. So this might be something that we work on, pick an area and work on it over the course of a few months or something, or over the course of time. Does that sound right? Is that what you're thinking, Amy? Is that what you're thinking, Jay?
Yeah, I think we're in a point where we're just trying to collect information.
Yeah.
That can inform the conversations that we're having both during the committees and then individually with everyone that's currently on the Zoom call.
Yeah. And the other thing that I learned that other school boards do from time to time is that they'll have a breakout and they'll actually work on particular policies with maybe 2 board members can work on that with an administrator and then bring something back, or maybe work on a policy with administrators and maybe some students. I don't know. I mean, schools do different things. So we can think about this a little bit differently, but we don't have to, like you said, we don't have to come up with anything right away. But I just wanted to throw those ideas out there for you guys to think about.
Yeah, I think this actually would be a good, this could be a very good project like that. We're having, digging a little bit with it and having conversations about it and then coming back. Right, that might be a good way to do it.
Okay.
So
maybe Jay and Amy, if you want to think about it a little bit, or Erin too, and then get back to me, and then we can think together a little bit, and then move ahead.
Yeah, and if at some point, if I may chime in, I think this is great. I mean, this is really healthy, right? To look at these kind of documents that just kind of get used year after year, right? Because they're there.
Right.
I think it's really healthy to look at this and just think about practice and documentation, and do they align, and are they what they want them to be? I think this is a great, really healthy thing. And I wonder if at some point, once we can all catch a breath with all this, if, some kind of, to your point, Kathleen, like some kind of committee where we bring some building staff and some board and some students together to like talk about this and just get a sense of where in the school we can pull stakeholders together to kind of have a conversation as a group, right? About what we want to see, what it looks like, how can we improve what we currently have. I think that would be a great conversation. Mike and Meg, of course.
Okay. Do we have any other comments on this as it for now?
Just
Erin.
rows assigned to us, or sorry,
I
am in and out. Okay, good. Are they just assigned to us by the police department, or is this a more mutual decision?
There's an interview process that, there's a couple different candidates, and the school has people on that interview committee, each school.
Yeah, and that comes from, I just think, Grace Lake is a small-ish community where there's a limited number of officers if we're pulling from that area. And, if we ever got into the problem of having a bad seed or a bad group, what do you do?
Yeah, I mean, regular and ongoing conversations between building administration and the chief. So if there's ever those concerns, or there's questions, or there's things they want to talk about, there's that direct line of communication that happens pretty regularly.
That's pretty well spelled. It's spelled out, I think, in the MOU about that kind of going back and forward. There's pretty exciting, but yeah, there's a lot there.
Okay. All right, so now we've got, all right, new business. There are no field trips.
Nope.
People keep asking me.
They keep asking you if we're going on field trips?
Yeah.
Huh.
I think they keep thinking that ones they know about that have always happened, like in the spring, if they're going.
Oh.
And all I respond is, well, I sit on that committee and we have not approved any trips this year.
Yeah.
Or last year, since last year.
I wouldn't bet on a whole lot of field trips. So.
Yeah, that's all I say. Okay, course modifications.
Okay, so you'll recall this is the time of year where we bring forward any modifications to existing and already approved courses. And we have our course guide that comes out in the fall for students to start picking classes for the next school year. So we want to make any updates to existing classes now. There's only 2 this year that require that are a structural change of some kind in the course guide. And that is, the first one is mobile makers. You guys will recall that is an app development class that we had. And currently it is a year-long course, a year-long honors level course. And the enrollment in that is not where we want it to be. It's pretty anemic. And when we talk to kids about that, there's 2 things that made it difficult for them to enroll, even if they wanted to. Number 1 was that it was a year long. And we know that kids' schedules are tight. They don't have a lot of room. If it were a semester long, that's easier for them. They can balance it off against another semester long course. But when it eats up a whole block of time, they have trouble fitting it. And the other was that it was only honors. And there are some students who, that for them, that's a turnoff, especially in an elective class. So some kids want honors, some don't. So the proposal from the teachers, from the department chair, and after feedback from students, is to make Mobile Makers 2 one-semester classes, Mobile Makers 1 and Mobile Makers 2. And so students can enroll in one or both of those. Obviously, 1 would be a prereq for 2. So that is the request. And then also, we want to open it to reg and honors students. It would actually be like an earned honors situation where students can enroll in reg or honors at the start of the semester. They are in the same course together. And then students have the ability to kind of choose whether they're going to pursue the honors level kind of final project, or if they want the regular level. Once they all have the foundational skills and understanding, they can make a choice, and they can choose the deeper, more difficult, more complex task that an honors credit would get you, or you can have what is still a rigorous curriculum, but not as complex, not as layered as the honors curriculum. And we're actually doing that this year in English in our senior electives. What we're finding, interestingly, and not surprisingly, really, is that students who enroll as regular decide, I can do that. And I can do that. Like, I get this, I'm underestimating my own abilities. And they pursue the more difficult, rigorous task and earn the honors credit. So we would like to model that in Mobile Makers elective course in the hopes of allowing kids to enroll. So any questions on that?
I don't. I think it's a good move. I can appreciate the distinctions. So Jay, Aaron, do you have any questions?
Oh, looks good to me.
Anyone else?
I just had a thought, Tracy. I'm dovetailing off of something you said.
Yeah.
Probably inappropriate. I love the idea of having a class that's both, and then having the kids choose. Amy has brought up in the past about all students being honorable, right? We've had that. And we do know that there are kids that may have a teacher that's instructionally perfect for them, but they want to be in that honors class because of I don't know, they just got to be in that honors class, right?
Yeah.
So, it'd be lovely, just somewhere in the back of your mind as you're doing your magic, it'd be nice if that was somewhere else too, maybe a little bit. just a thought.
Yeah.
I'm sure you're already thinking about it, but.
Yeah, we do it in world language a little bit. And we've done that and we're doing it currently in English, senior year electives.
Okay.
So.
Where they can start out as one and dovetail into another, like.
Yeah, so they sign up as one or the other, but they're in class together. And so then they can, once they have an understanding of the curriculum, they can switch.
Oh, I'd love to hear more about that later, not now. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions on that?
Yes.
The other one is a simple name change. Gabrielle, our new EL department chair, would like to update the language. Currently our ESL class, English is a second language 1 and English is a second language 2. We offer both of those courses, we have to. She wants to change them to the more updated name of English language development. ESL is no longer the nomenclature. It's not used by the state. It's not used by WIDA. It's not used by anyone because English isn't always their second language. It could be their third. It could be their fourth. So we use things more like multilingual or English language development. So she would just like to update the name from ESL to English language development. And that's it.
Yeah, I'm glad to see this change. Any questions? Jay?
No, I'm good.
Erin?
I'm good. I love this paradigm of putting honors and regular in together, and that's just awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, to piggyback off of what Kathleen said, I love it when a child is tapped to do honors and that lights them up. It opens up opportunities.
Yep.
So not piling it on, it's a different angle.
Right.
Yep, it opens things up. I've seen it happen. It makes a world of difference.
For sure.
New challenges. Okay, anyone else? All right, we got thumbs up. Fabulous, fabulous. Okay. All right, part of my screen here. Here we go. All right, recordings of students and adult conversations. This is a question that Douglas had raised to have on our agenda, so here it is. There had been, Tracy and I had discussed this, and I think Tracy is best to, is Douglas on the line? Well, we're discussing it, so, or we can move it to when he's on another time, but probably for our purposes, I think it's still good to discuss this because it's so relevant. So Tracy, if you wouldn't mind touching on it, I think that would be good. And then if Douglas has questions, we can maybe just discuss it at the board level.
Sure. So there was some wondering as we kind of launched into this new full-time virtual world, should recordings be made of student-teacher conferences when it's a one teacher, one student situation? It's kind of interesting because, I think administratively, initially our gut reaction was, sure, if it makes you feel better, go ahead and record it. It turns out it's not that simple. And as we learned about it, as we consulted attorneys, as we worked with other districts, our position changed on this to where our actual position now is do not record them. And there are a couple different reasons for that. First, when if you record a single student in that way, it becomes a student record. It has to be removed from the teacher's device. It has to be stored by the district for, 5 years? We have to have permission from the parent in order to make that recording. That's a difficult message also to pass along. Why do we need to record this? And if the parent didn't sign off on the approval of a recording, what does that mean? Does that mean that we can't have a one-to-one meeting and tutor with a student? So legally, our lawyer very much urged us not to record one-to-one meetings. So there's the legal side, and then there's the logistical technical side. And if I misspeak, Jess can certainly chime in and probably do a better job. But the sheer number of one-to-one meetings that we have in this virtual world, when we have things like AIM and the ARC and the MARC and the Right Room and evening tutoring sessions and office hours with teachers and staff, we're talking dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of meetings a day. So the sheer logistics of having to record that, which takes time to then upload to some other cloud-based area, get it off the teacher's device and store it for 5 years. The time, the bandwidth, the ability for the teacher who is trying to trying to upload a session recording that they previously recorded while trying to Zoom with other students might not even be feasible when we start stretching our bandwidth like that. So there were technical reasons that we couldn't just logistically do it, but more importantly, there were legal reasons that our attorneys advised us not to. We did make some offers to staff. If we had staff that felt uncomfortable, that they were welcome to come into the building if they were going to have one-on-one and be perhaps near security or sit socially distanced in the administrative area or anywhere that they would like where there's another adult. They could move to a more public place in their home with other family members or so forth near them or by them. Or we did put it out there, but no one's taken us up on it, that if they wanted us to find like a para or somebody, another staff member that would sit in with them if they needed, that we would provide that. People indicated that would just be weird for the kid and the teacher to have some random person just sitting in the meeting, which I get. So for all those reasons, we do not recommend one-on-one recordings of single meetings. Now, if a teacher records a lesson in a classroom for instructional purposes, that is not a student record, and we are not posting it anywhere. We're just, except in Schoology, which is a password protected system. So our lawyer indicated that is fine, that is not a student record, and that's not a concern. But when you start doing one-on-one meetings and recording those, it's a concern. So if I misspoke, if I missed something, anybody on the team, please jump in.
Was this prompted by any particular problem?
No, Douglas asked us if we were asked what our procedure was to, are we recording these? So,
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I believe Douglas was prompted by training that he has had through the Boy Scouts. And that was it.
Yeah, and it's something I was thinking about too, is just with the sheer number of one-on-one teacher-student private conversations that would normally be taking place in a school building and open doors and all of that. I think that there are, making sure, I think there were some concerns of the potential of that, and you're nodding your head, so you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yep. Yep.
Right. I'm glad that we've looked into this. Mm-hmm. It's good, and it's good that the lawyer has addressed it. Mm-hmm. It's good to know what the best practices are, and to also understand what what constitutes a student record. Mm-hmm. I think that everyone needs to know what that is. Mm-hmm. That's important.
Agreed.
So, I know even where I work, we don't allow people to take pictures of children on their own phones. They so badly want to, because they're like, oh, that's a perfect moment. Here, I'll take that picture. They're trying to be helpful, and we have strict policies that will not allow them to do that. So they have to find me. So I've got the camera. Or I have another camera. I have cameras that are issued that they can use at any time. They have to go find it.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Any other questions about this? The best way maybe to follow up with Douglas is I could let him know maybe that we discussed this, and if he has any further questions, or he would have seen the agenda.
Yeah, it'll be in the minutes.
It'll be in the minutes. Let's leave it there, and I'll just let him know that way.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll do that. Would you recommend anything different, Kathleen?
No, I think that's fine. But you know what? It will be in the minutes. But Amy, if you could just send him a quick email or just a little something so he knows that we had this, it'd be kind of nice, just so he.
I can summarize that it becomes that the lawyer's has advised the school that it becomes a student record retained for 5 years.
Yeah.
Personnel has been advised. You know, there's thing, and he's going to see the minutes.
And CC Mickle and Tracy and that.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, okay, the usual stuff. All right, but thank you for asking, Amy.
Yep, you're welcome. Okay. All right. Remote Plus. Kathleen, you had asked for this to be on the agenda, so it is here. Yeah. We've discussed this.
Yes, I did. Yeah, we did, and thank you. And the reason I brought this up is I know we're moving, and I know you guys are so busy getting everything ready for school to start. And what prompted me to think about this was that at the last board meeting, one of the participants said that when Mickle had said that we're kind of in a hybrid posture at the moment because we were bringing kids in, this person said, well, no, we're not, because they have a conception of what hybrid was. And I thought, oh, it's a little bit different than what Mickle was thinking and what I was thinking. And I went back to what I had learned when I had sat in at the board meeting over at Stevenson, when they had decided to go remote until I think it's January. I think that was their decision. But what they did was to give people a feeling that the school was doing something, and you all are doing a lot, is they came up with this placeholder called Remote Plus. Call it whatever you want. It's just a title at the moment. And it was for, after school activities, and, like our AIM program, kids that there was learning loss, all these different groups that would need to be coming into the school could come in under that heading. And as long as the school, was safe, they would continue to come in. And so I wanted to bring this up because I want people to know that we are doing something. There's stuff going on, and to give it maybe give it a name, and when we do have groups that go into that we kind of can say, well, we're kind of working up to bringing more kids in, and this is what we're doing, and this is how we're doing it. So that was the whole idea about Remote Plus that I was thinking about, because regardless of whether we, you make the decision that we're going back based on whatever, all the different things that you're thinking about, we may or may not. And so people need to know, I think people need to know that you're doing all this great work. And so that's where that came out of. And yeah, that's it.
Yeah, so just kind of going back to our original timeline, we had, starting with remote, post Labor Day, we didn't kind of have a snazzy title, well, not one that we stuck with, I guess, but we bring back different groups of students, and it was a little nebulous, and there was a reason for that because we weren't exactly sure how it was going to roll. But so we had athletics and activities, that's been going since the summer. The next group we're actually able to bring in was our CTE students, so woodworking, metals, small engines, mobile makers. And that, it's been going for a couple of weeks, and as I kind of mentioned, it's great to see those kids. But we started to get some questions about, well, wait a minute, why are you prioritizing athletics and why woodworking and things like that? What I can say is this is not a linear process in any way, shape, or form. Sometimes, we've got different gears that are moving, different machinery that's going in different departments, and sometimes certain aspects are easier and able to, we're able to implement it quicker than others. So that being said, however, we have been working on working with students who are struggling, whether it's AIM during the day. So anyway, it's all starting to come together now, either this week or I think next week. So we have some students coming in to get support through their AIM tutors. We have some evening appointments. We have some special ed students who are coming in various forms. So, whether we call it Remote Plus or Phase 2 groups or things like that, a lot of this stuff is coming together as we speak. So,
yeah, I would just say we had AIM kids in the building this week. We've had OT and PT already happening. Not PT, I think just OT. We had special ed evaluations in person. We had EL screeners coming in, EL students be screened in person. And as Mikkel said, we have kind of a cool evening appointment system being already in place and is it being expanded where we have students, a homework helpline of sorts, but we have our own staff who don't perform their assigned duty during the day because we don't need that duty in remote, and instead they work at night with students, including on Sunday nights. So just trying to put more and more things in place to help these students that are struggling. So
Tracy, I'm not asking you to put more to work harder than what you already are. I know you are. Yeah, that's not the point.
Yeah.
The point that I think I'm getting, maybe I'm not articulating it well, maybe someone wants to help me, is that we have a way, a placeholder, so that people know that this activity is this great work is going on. And it may be our posture between now and the end of the school year. We don't know. But people should know, because I think there can be backlash, like this one guy, you're not doing anything. This one parent, you're not doing anything. And that's not true. And so if that space is there and it lets them know, well, this is what we're doing, and we have these things that are ongoing, and as we develop our skills and our knowledge, we're bringing in more, that's the point. And it's not to make you work harder or push more kids into the school than what your capabilities are able to do. I hope I made it clear. That's what I'm thinking.
It's stuff that's been going on. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like all, educators and you and us and everybody, we're all kind of thinking along the same lines. We're seeing kids, as Tracy had kind of mentioned earlier, kids who are dropping off and struggling. So what procedures, what policies, what programs can we put in place to try to mitigate it against some of that?
I think I'm going to hand this over to our communications expert. Amy, do you want to help me articulate this? Or
how do we package this, right?
Yeah, put a bow on it for me.
Nothing at the bit. So what I might suggest, I do like the suggestion of Remote Plus, because it suggests a menu. And it suggests that there's action happening that people can choose from, that they may be blocking themselves off from, that they're not realized that they can engage into. Meaning that if you've got a student that you're saying is starting to just not, is falling off, and then the parents are like, well, it's just remote right now, I can't do anything about it. Well, maybe they can get into this other activity one-on-one, or this other thing that's being offered. That's not just an athletic, that's not just an activity. But it's showing that menu that's happening versus people that are just like, this is it, this is all I've got, it's stuck, it's not moving. We're aware that you're doing these things. We're aware that the gears are going. But amplifying a bit of what is available and how to engage into it is pretty helpful. So that, knowing that the CT students are in and the SATs happened and the athletics are happening, that's all really good. But then also adding, that your IEPs are coming in, the OT, all that. And then if you need to, it's like, this is how you do it. And if you've got a student that's a parent that's like, I need extra help, then this is how to do it. The parents need more, the parents need some form of navigating too.
Mhm.
So that also helps them. So
I'm also thinking from the perspective of depending what happens in November and what you guys all decide to do. You know, there may be pushback at, like, people are saying, oh, well, what are you doing? Well, here, this is what we're in. I know you're all working hard. Don't want to give you more work to do, but you should get credit for what you are doing. And it's a lot, and people should know about it. And I think that's right. Okay.
it allows placement for things that are happening that you are able to do, even if you're not able to engage into the hybrid. What pieces can you do at this time? At this time is a phrase I use a lot. This is what we can do at this time. At this time. The end of a lot of sentences, at this time. This is what we can do at this time. It's all intended to be helpful, but it is a place, it can be a real thing that can be very helpful, that people can kind of get. So I've also been telling people to contact their teachers and any trusted teacher they have early and often when they just for whatever reason with their kids.
Yeah, we have that whole 2:15 to 3:15 time slot, right, at the end of each day. And we have a lot of teachers who they're booked during that time, but we have a lot of teachers who kids aren't coming. And they'll say, no, school's over at 1:44. No, you know, that's why we have this time carved out. So
right. No, I've
reminders and tweets, but yeah.
I've also heard some great things. I mean, I heard from, you know, I've heard from parents that are not planning on sending their children back. They're just not planning on it. And I've heard some great things about I heard very specifically some great things about the woodworking class and how great that was, all the way from the very, you know, working into it and all the way through. And I said, well, now those are, all of these students have their essays in the making now for what they need to do, for what they're going to have for, you know, they're already starting to write their essays for college or for their tech school or for wherever they decide to go. They've got their experiences in the making. It's happening real time.
Yeah.
So, you know, because they were the first to go into that, you know, go into the school. What was that like? Right? So.
Yep.
Anyway, so these are things that can be highlighted. It can be very simple. This does not need to be, none of this has to be War and Peace, but it can help mitigate some of the anxiety and concern, and it can help. It can help. Mm-hmm. Just a little forward movement can go a long way.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks for the conversation.
Kathleen, did you have anything else to add? Does anyone else? Jay? Aaron? I think Aaron's speaking. Okay, Aaron, I'm going to come back to you. Jay?
No, I'm good.
Kathleen?
I'm good. It's fine. I think it's more political than anything else, to be honest with you. Just to be honest, I'm sorry. I know it's a movement to and it's being done and you are doing it. And if you can do it easily and give it a name and that doesn't cost you anything, go ahead and do it.
Point well taken.
This
Thank you.
protocol.
So I'm done. I'm done with this. So, you know, we can talk about it again, but I think we need, depending on how this year rolls out, I think people may need to know, because we will be getting people coming to the board yelling at us, and if we can say, hey, and they can see it, and then we just keep moving.
Mhm.
The bullies are out in full force.
Yes.
All right. Okay. Thanks, Amy.
Erin, did you have anything? I don't want to miss you.
No, I'm fine. I mean, it is what it is, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. I think I will add one thing. I'm sorry. If there's a way that, because I am concerned that as good as everything might look right now, that when November comes, it may not all work the way that we want it to work. This is my concern for all the good intentions and all the hope, right? That we might be just not able to engage into a hybrid. So if this might be a Jessica thing, but a way, so I think the Chromebook help desk has been great, because I know that when there's been a concern about Chromebooks, we're like, help desk, contact the help desk, right? So if there's a concern about, and like to do something, maybe there is another way to contact and send in.
Yeah, I mean, we've
So front facing that you can't miss it. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great thought. We've changed all of the pages on the website to make sure that's the first thing that's listed. Teachers have put it in their Schoology. We've actually completed now, as of yesterday, over 1,800 tickets since July 1st. Closed. It's the fastest way for students to get their support. And what's great is that everyone has access to the tickets. So like if I start to answer one and then I'm out the next day, Carlos can pick it up or Denise can pick it up. Whereas when it's direct emails, that's difficult, right? Because then only that one person has the ability to respond. What's also kind of neat is we've had Sean Evans working on the back end of putting in these canned responses for typical problems that we're seeing now repeatedly. So we're sending them just the canned response that has the link to the resource. And actually, not just for students, but also for staff. We've created a Zoom schoolroom resource with all of the updates for Zoom and all of the resources for Zoom. And so we're able to now canned response when certain issues come in. Here's the direct link you need to find the setting you need. And they're answered sometimes in under 2-3 minutes. So we've been really excited with that system. And like I said, I tried to put it on every front-facing page I could find on the website. So that, I mean, parents email it too. With our new system that we switched to in July, you don't have to have a D127 email address to be able to use our help desk.
Right. That's the one I had shared out, actually, because I'm the one they've said they can't get in. I'm like, well, they use this as the one you use.
Yeah, the help desk at D127.
Yeah.
It's great too, because parents have been emailing there. That's a lot of the ways where I get requests with help with hotspot issues, or, you know, just parents in general asking for how to support their students at home. Mm-hmm. So it's become a great traffic center, and it's just been great that the tickets can be answered, you know, sometimes within 5 minutes of the ticket being put in.
Yeah, I will say one other thing, and then I'll finish up. If we're hearing from people now thinking that, what are they doing? And there's a lot being done, then I think it would ease people's minds to know that these things are being done, and that the district, local governance is doing things and is being proactive and is helping in areas that we can, and that you are actively working in these areas to provide information. And that can mentally ease people's minds and give us space. That's all I'm saying. And I am done with it. I don't want to say, oh, go ahead and complain. We'll deal with it. You can spend hours dealing with people complaining, but if you can move on quick. And I think it could be a way of doing that. But saying that, I'd like to move on. So, Amy, if we could. Okay.
No, if you've got your, yeah, I mean.
Communications.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I believe the video that Nicole's sending out to the entire D127 families tomorrow outlines all of those things in detail. So hopefully people watch it.
Yes, I haven't seen it yet. So there you go.
Yeah.
So, all right. Don't mean to, okay, that's great. Okay. Let's see. Board policy review. Oh my gosh. We've got
Title IX.
Title IX, which basically says all of it for this whole thing.
Yep.
Yep. All right. Okay, here we go. All right, 2260.
Mm-hmm. So this is an update of an existing policy, the uniform grievance procedure. And the updates on this are to reflect the fact that the uniform grievance procedure used to be the process that any and all complaints, grievances would fall under the processes and procedures of this policy. Updates to Title IX, new laws around Title IX has emerged. And so all the updates you're going to see in these policies and some in next month are reflective of this new Title IX updates. So what has happened is Title IX sexual harassment complaints have been pulled out of the uniform grievance procedure policy and have its own policy now. So no longer will this policy 2260 apply to sexual harassment complaints. Rather, the next policy that we'll look at next will be the one that that governs how we address sexual harassment complaints. So it parses them out, sexual harassment complaints from all other complaints. So all of these updates in the uniform grievance procedure are simply reflecting the updates to the Title IX and related legal references.
Okay. Are there any questions? Jay?
Nope.
You'll notice at the bottom that there's now two different kinds of complaint managers. There's the regular complaint manager, complaint managers. We need two of them, one male, one female. That is Mark and Danielle. They have been our complaint managers. But we now also have a non-discrimination coordinator, and that is who would directly oversee any sexual harassment, or would at least initially take the sexual harassment complaints, and that's Danielle. So you see Mark's name crossed off there because he will not be the non-discrimination coordinator. That's at the bottom of 3 of 5. Then there is just one required question in association with this policy. And it asks simply, will the non-discrimination coordinator also serve as our Title IX coordinator? The default answer for that is yes, and that is what we are doing. So Danielle will be our non-discrimination coordinator and our Title IX coordinator. Keep them all in the same house.
Okay. All right. Erin, did you have any questions?
No, I'm good.
Okay. All right. On to 2265.
Yep. So this is the brand new policy around Title IX, outlining what the grievance procedure is if someone wanted to submit a grievance around a sexual harassment complaint. So it provides all the definitions. So there's some common language, and talks about how to make a report, who the Title IX coordinator is, so someone knows, so the person knows who to report to, and then just some processing of, what does the processing look like? What is the process of the filing the grievance, of processing the grievance, the enforcing the grievance, and all of that. So this whole new policy outlines that process. There are, I think, 3 or 4.
Yeah, there's a few.
Yeah, required questions.
Yeah.
The first is easy. Do we employ associate principals? Yes. Do we employ a dean of students? Yes. Required question 3, will the district use a live hearing during the grievance process? The default answer to that is no. Danielle can feel free to chime on this if I misspeak, since she spent quite a bit of time with our attorney going over this policy. But the default answer is no, because what ends up happening is we're going to go through an exhaustive investigatory procedure. But if we couple that with a live hearing, then what you're asking is the complainant to now, in front of a live group of people, rehash and retell their entire story yet again. So the recommended position from our attorney and the default answer is that no, we would have our investigatory procedure in place and follow that, but not then layer on top of that this live piece. And then question 4. This is, you'll recall that the current Department of Education allowed institutions to modify the required degree of evidence or standard of proof by raising the bar, essentially. Organizations have the opportunity to raise the bar for the kind of proof required to proceed with this investigation and a finding. The default and historic standard of proof has been preponderance of evidence. That's the default, that's the recommended, and that's the one our lawyers would like us to use. If we wanted to raise the bar of the standard of proof further to clear and convincing evidence, then we have that option. It is not recommended. Danielle, did I misspeak in any of that?
Absolute perfection as usual. Thank you.
Is there any questions about that?
No, I think we should go with these recommendations.
Okay.
Agreed.
Jay, any questions?
Nope.
Erin?
Nope. I like going with the recommend.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, we are on to
510. Yeah.
510.
Again, just reflecting updates that we now have a non-discrimination coordinator and outlining that in our equal employment opportunity policy and who those people are. So those are the only updates to that or in reference to Title IX.
Okay. Any questions about that? Jay?
Nope. Looks good.
Erin?
Looks good to me.
Okay. Moving along to 520.
Yeah, same is true here. This is the workplace harassment prohibited. Mm-hmm. There's some repeats here in terms of process and who and how you make a report, but all of that's been updated to reflect
all the new language.
law. Yep.
Okay. Any questions here, Jay?
Nope.
Erin?
Nope.
Okay. Moving along, 5100, staff development program.
Yeah, so this has been updated again to reflect the requirements under Title IX for required trainings that now need to happen. Most all, if not all, of the various people in our organization who now play a role in the investigatory process for this Title IX policy have gone through training. So Danielle, Mark, Nickel, Jim, Dan, I don't know if Meg and Mike yet, but they will. They have, yeah.
They have, yes.
So everyone's already gone through the training required, and then our entire organization will also be going through training around sexual harassment.
Any questions here, Jay?
Quick thing, is this separate? This would be like separate from like a GCN training, correct?
There actually, Jay, is a GCN training. It's 71 minutes, and on top of all the others that we've mandated this year, we decided amongst us that I'm going to do a training in partnership with our attorney and just do a very specific training to us in 127 and not ask staff to watch a 16th Safe Schools video. So
Bless
we're
your heart.
yeah, thanks.
That's a good idea. Okay. Any questions? Erin?
No, I'm good.
All right, moving along. 710 equal educational opportunities.
Same, just updates for Title IX, that we now have a coordinator and that there's some legal references that have been updated.
Okay. Questions, Jay?
Nope, looks good.
Erin?
Nope.
Okay. 720 harassment of students prohibited.
Yep, again, just some updated language to reflect the language in the new Title IX law.
Okay. Any questions, Jay?
Nope.
Erin?
Nope.
Okay. That was it.
Yep.
Well, now I have to get back. Whoa. Okay. All right, so we will move those forward to the next board meeting. All right, do we have a need to go into closed session?
Nope.
Oh, that's good. Okay, now we're on to personnel. Danielle, you've waited all night. Here you are.
Oh, you're sweet.
Yeah,
It's a pleasure
later.
to wait. Yeah, so this evening we bring forth recommendations, a big batch for coaches. Not much in terms of resignation. I think just one small activities change. But we do bring forth one retirement. And below that retirement, you will notice there is a MOA for board approval. The reason for this is Dr. Zellick and Miss Mary Prang engaged in conversation last year about her retirement. She is a second career teacher with us, and so she had her eye on retirement here as she kind of met that 20-year mark. So she and Dr. Zellick engaged as they normally would, and kind of without much ceremony, COVID hit. So the conversations about retirement got a little fuzzy, a little back burner. And so essentially what this MOA agrees to is that we really are waiving that Feb 1 intent to retire back from 2020. We've allowed Mary to take some additional time to make that careful consideration, as a lot of her income was based on events that we don't hold. As you know, we don't have spectators at our events anymore, and Mary spent a lot of her time supporting those events, taking tickets, ensuring supervision at those games and such. So she really needed, and we wanted to grant her some additional time before making that very important decision. So essentially what this MOA says is that it's a one-time non-precedent setting kind of situation, very specifically with Mary Prang. Our union, of course, is in total support of that. So it's just a formality for us, but one that we support and one that is truly a one-off. So just wanted to draw your attention there. Amy, any other questions on that or more detail I can provide, just let me know.
Yeah, we received one today, so has everyone had a chance to read it? Jay, Erin?
Yeah, I went through it. Thank you for being flexible.
You're welcome.
Erin?
I'm good with it.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, it seems all reasonable.
Thanks. She's lovely. She will be missed, but we have 4 more years with her, so we're very happy about that. So this year, after the signature on this MOA, will mark year 1 of her 4-year intent to retire. So thank you for your support.
Okay. Any other comments about personnel?
I'm good.
Erin?
I'm good.
All right. Thank you, Danielle.
My pleasure, Amy. Thank you.
We should put you first.
That's okay. Save the best for last, right? Let's just say that.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
I'm kidding, Tracy.
You're all stars.
We're all special, right, Amy? We have a special place on the P cubed agenda.
That is right. You're all, that's right. Okay. Topics for future meetings.
Oh, wait, do we need to go through the coaching stuff or no?
Oh, I thought we did.
Oh, okay.
I did. That was all wrapped up in personnel.
Perfect. Sorry.
Yeah. I mean, are we using, we're using the coaches, right?
Oh,
I lost people.
you lose
Did I lose Danielle?
You're muted.
Oh,
I'm sorry, Amy, my internet went out. I'm sorry. Did you have a question?
yeah. No, I'm fine.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, so topics for future committee meetings.
I have one just to put on your radar.
Sure.
That I'm hoping that next P cubed we will have some recommendations around from the Bell Schedule Committee. Remember that big old committee that's been meeting for over a year?
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that next meeting I'll have some updates for you on and recommendation from that committee.
Have you received some feedback recently?
From
just students in general.
Oh yeah.
Starting at 8:30 every
We've
day.
almost been able to do a lot. I mean, aren't we all right now just going through things and changing and tweaking things and like, well, wow, hey.
Yeah. So I have another Bell Schedule Committee next week. I have got some feedback I need to get from the entire staff, but I think we're going to have a recommendation, at least an update to give you at next PQ.
Good. That's great. That's really good.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else? Anyone else? Jay?
I don't know if this needs to be put on for next meeting, but I guess just once we get the SRO evaluation tool and going back to that discussion, just so we can further the conversation.
Sure.
This might be a little bit ahead of anything, but at some point, not anytime soon, if we could think about once the kids come back to school, will there be opportunities for some kids to actually have remote experiences, to continue with our remote experiences? So once we're back into full school mode or whatever that, hopefully sooner than later. But at some point, maybe we want to talk about having some classes that actually happen at home.
We've already started talking about that actually, Kathleen.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. That's great.
Yeah.
Well, when you're ready, but as long as it's on your radar, I know it always is, but great. Okay. Thanks.
Yep.
Yeah, that's good to hear. Yeah, because I don't think it's been negative for everyone.
No.
I mean, I know that.
No, I think there's definitely some kids thriving. And there's also just a place for, maybe it's just a course, right, within a student's day. It doesn't need to be all of them, right?
Yeah, I'm not saying it's perfect at all, but
Yeah.
no, I understand that.
I'm not thinking about additional AP classes either. I mean, like, oh, I'm going to take 20 now. I can do them all at night. But you know what I mean? Like, so, yeah. Okay, all right. I'll go back to sleep. I'll go back to mute.
Okay, Erin?
You know what, and this is another thing that it's just, I think our next PQ will be right around when you're getting back to hybrid in November. And something that Tracy said today, that we are having an increased number of students that are struggling. And just, I think, not kind of, if there's anything we need to do, or if there's information about making sure that when we are coming back and learning loss and all of that. And did I totally freeze?
No.
Oh, I hear you perfectly loud and clear.
Okay, you all froze, so.
Oh, okay. No,
Yeah.
I hear you. You asked about learning loss and what we need to do with the struggle.
Yeah, and if we're losing kids and,
Yeah. This has been I think we just keep hitting this drumbeat, right? So Erin, did you have anything more to say? I don't want to cut you off.
No.
Okay. So my own agenda, so something I would like to have on the agenda myself is, and this goes to Danielle and everyone, is whether or not we really do need to look at, I know I asked about this about a month ago, but I'd like to revisit it if we need to hire clinical psychologists or social worker, name it, given the concerns that we might be facing. And so just looking at that forward going. And I have a bias because my father was a clinical psychologist, so I do tap into him a lot right now about, everything that I'm hearing. And so,
I think that might be a board level conversation around what we've learned in the first semester. Like we had talked earlier about maybe kind of grouping up what we know and maybe having a board level meeting on that. We can whenever you're ready.
That's fine. The only reason why I mentioned it here was because of personnel, whether or not there was a need number-wise with personnel.
Yeah.
But it can start anywhere. I have no concern whatsoever where that conversation starts, lands, wherever. I just want to ensure that people feel comfortable bringing up the need and feel like they can make the ask.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's actually lovely timing, as not next month, but in December, Tracy and I will bring forth our staffing planning kind of blue sky conversations of what we're thinking about for the future. So this is very timely and appropriate. As we know, this is trauma, right? This is another layer of trauma that we need to get at and understand the impact, not just for students, but for staff. So the timing on this is spot on. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I will say, and maybe they'll tell me differently now, but I think our staff right now feels equipped to meet with students, work with students, and help students. They may find they're not, but I'm not sure they're going to know that until we have kids in the building. But I know that that's their position right now, is they feel they feel equipped for when kids come back. And again, they may find something different when kids are back, but right now they're gearing up and making plans. So just to put that in the space. didn't mean to kill the conversation. Just wanted to put that in space.
You didn't kill a conversation, Tracy. I think the seriousness is just a lot.
Serious conversation. I mean, it's we have adults who are facing isolation. We have children that are facing isolation. We have children that have a view of what they want in high school and their experience to be. And not everyone has a good experience in high school, but some have a great experience in high school. And a lot of people are yearning for it. So in terms of that experience, right? So, when, like being that, when Nicola had said earlier tonight, being part, well, not everyone feels being a part of high school, even without COVID. So how do these are all very complex situations for kids. And you all know this, I don't need to elaborate on it, but it's extraordinarily complex. And
when they come back, right, high school won't be what they're expecting even when they're back in person.
That's right.
It might be a shock.
That's right.
Yeah. So,
okay.
I just have an acute awareness. So, and I think we all do, but
Yeah.
I won't take up any more of your time. Okay, so we've got a lot to discuss next time, and there will be more always. We are just in the thick of it. Is there anything more before we adjourn? Did everyone get to say what they needed to say? Okay. All righty. All right, so it is 9:47 p.m. and we are adjourned. I will see you again next time.
Okay. Good night, everyone.
Good night, everybody.